should now be live. While Karl just takes a nice big sip, I'm just gonna like make sure that he doesn't have to intro while also drinking.
Oh, I was going to do like a ventriloquist thing, like, when they take a big sip of the water, and then so I can't do that. I can't do that. But yes, welcome one and all to another episode of the Wiki Weekdays podcast. This is the series where I, your host for this episode, Karl Smallwood, and my ever illustrious co-host, Lucas Holland.
Hello there.
I like how every time you affect a higher register to do your hello there, because you sound too much like.
What I have to like, it's just one of those things, right? Of like. It's almost like kind of like putting on like a phone voice or a customer voice or something.
Oh man, go on, give us a hint of your customer voice.
Because
you must have to use that a bit now, right?
Yeah, like
you've been picking some shifts.
I don't know.
Give me a customer voice.
I kind of just put myself up here, just heighten my register a bit. Like, hi guys, everything okay?
Oh, I can hear it.
Yeah,
I can hear it. My customer voice is very similar. It's like, hello there, how are you doing? Like, it's very similar, but a lot more. I talk a lot more from up in my chest as opposed to down here.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, yes, it's the Wiki Weekdays podcast where I, your host, as mentioned, Karl Smallwood and Lucas Holland, go through or scour the lengths and breadth of the internet for wikis on a subject we're interested in, bring them forward for discussion, and then we get you, our audience, to decide which of the wikis inspired the best discussion. And if you would like to vote on this week's, you can follow the links found below to our Discord to vote on which wiki won this week. And as a reminder, it's not which wiki is personally your favourite subject, it is what, Lucas?
It is just which wiki you think like created the best discussion, right?
Yes, and last week our audience felt that the greatest discussion was inspired by the wiki on Latveria. Doom would be very pleased.
Yeah, like Doom would be pleased indeed. And just a quick apologies for like the start of the podcast last week audio wise, and just to double check that things sound okay. We forgot last week to record a quick snip and check it, and we've done that this week, and it should be all right.
Yes,
but just let us know. I'm sorry that the first 20 minutes was so peaky.
That I was going to say that can't be helped, but it very much could have been helped, and we apologise for not checking. It was our first live recording of the year, and we were just using our recording setups for which the specific levels of our audio doesn't particularly matter, because both myself and Lucas, I imagine you do the same things, but you normalise the audio before you start editing it, so it's the same volume.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't realise that, so we do apologise for that, and hopefully this week things are a lot smoother. And another thing we like to do to encourage some audience participation is our Pet of the Week, who you can see on screen right now. That is Tia, Pet of the Week, and I believe their owner is in chat getting mad hype that they won.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
the
don't
little
know let me... I didn't press the option to loop the videos for the name, so it just played it once and then left it. But the Patreon names are back up now.
We'll mention that in a second. But yes, our Pet of the Week is another thing that you can either submit to or vote on down in our Discord. Just a fun thing. It's not too serious, although it kind of is when when you win. Like I won, I think the last one we did with it is a pet, but it's a painting of a pet. My granddad's dog Shitface. And the photo of Tia came with the caption, my dog was narrowly beaten out by Shitface. And it's kind of hard to beat a dog called Shitface.
It is, yeah.
I'm glad they got the win for this episode.
Hell yeah. So shout out to Tia for winning this week. But yeah, it's just one of those of it's hard when A, it's Karl, and B, when it's like a dog called Shitface, right? It
is hard to beat a dog called Shitface, yes. But that's another gimmick we like to do. So if you've got pictures of pets, animals that you happen to see when you're walking around, submit them in a Discord, vote on them. It's all good fun. And Lucas, I guess you mentioned it. We thought we got everything sorted for this week. Also, my camera's froze. Oh god!
Camera's messed up.
While I'm looking gormless and I fixed that, can you tell people what the names scrolling across the top of the screen represent?
Yeah, so they are people that are in our tier on Patreon, where you just get the nice featured names in our podcast, and of course you can see those names now looping above both of us. So special thanks to all of the people who are in that tier and above on our Patreon. It's much appreciated for the support.
I can't believe you only played the video once to start with.
Yeah,
that's such a good gimmick. Your name will be on screen.
10 seconds and that's it.
There's literally a Simpsons joke about that. where it's like Bart sends $20 to the Krusty the Clown show, and his name scrolls past at like 400 miles
like
an
a
hour.
million miles an hour. Yeah, it's one of those things of like I redid the video to make sure the text was centered this time, like I said I would, for this podcast. So
I
I'd
think you
done
should
that,
make.
but then I'd not clicked the option of like loop video on
If
OBS.
I was you, I would make it so like every time it scrolls across, it gets nudged like one like pixel to the right.
Can you imagine though if we did it where each name was like 0.1 second on a screen, and it's just like it looped, but you have to be like on it to read each name.
Well, have you ever seen like those videos where people have like hundreds of thousands of patrons, and like their credit section looks like a Marvel movie?
Yeah.
And you end up with like, and the thing that I love about those is people start to try and gamify them, where they'll change their name to have like Aaron A. Aronson, so they appear closer to the top.
Or they pick like the longest name possible so it stands out.
It
right?
stands out, right? Yeah, or they start picking a silly name that stands out, or all caps, or something like that, or start putting in like the weird special characters.
And obviously, we will put like basically any name on our screens, but like nothing offensive, of course. Like we will moderate this to a certain degrry, so don't try and get that cutesy with it.
Unless you can prove that it's your real name, like they did with remember the film Meet the Fockers? Remember that film? It's the
I remember the film.
Parents. Yeah, so for that, they got done under obscenity laws. Of like, it's too close to the word fuck. And the filmmakers had to go find a family with that actual last name to prove that it's a last name. And they did. They presented it to the ratings board, said it's a real last, it's an uncommon one, but it's real. They said, okay, it's not an obscenity, and that family got like a load of merch. You got to meet like Robert De Niro and stuff.
It's like the opposite of when video game developers have been like, name your child Dovahkiin, and they've got to be born on 11/11/11. And we'll give you like what, a game or something. I can't even remember what the prize was.
Yeah, nothing will ever be. It's the best friends did a bit on this. It's probably one of the funniest podcast bits where they talk about all of the dumb things video games did to advertise themselves, and it just ends up with them talking about bloodvertising, where there was like I think it was like Dante's Inferno, like you advertise by writing their name in blood on like journalist doors and stuff like that. Which is Dante's Inferno is a thing I'd like to cover. I'd like to cover it at some point.
The marketing side of things is also a wiki we should cover at some point.
Well, the marketing, it was shown at the Super Bowl.
Well, I ment like bad marketing from video games in general. Like that's definitely a wiki episode at some point. Like
nothing ever beats the Need for Speed one, where they had an advertising campaign where we'll pay your speeding ticket if you tell the arresting officer or ticketing officer your reason why is that you're rushing to the store to buy our game. And the marketing department got fucking hammered for that. It's like, you can't tell people to commit crimes.
Yeah. And just someone in chat mentioning like the Bethesda games for life it was for the Dovahkiin baby, but like imagine telling your child that you ruin their life for like one game a year from Bethesda. It's like goddamn. I wonder whether as well it's like, oh no, but Doom's coming out, I'll get that for free, right? And they're on the phone to Bethesda. Bethesda, that's not a Bethesda game studio game, that's just a Bethesda published game actually, so no, sorry.
If I was in their marketing department, I'd say give them everything.
Because 100%.
It would never be worth the Dovahkiin sues Bethesda in the news. You don't want that headline to ever appear.
That would be an excellent headline. It's almost up there with like Bowser becomes president of Nintendo.
I can't wait for that guy to get embroiled in some sort of scandal.
Oh god.
I'm not hoping that he does, but it's like if he ever does, that'd be so.
Can you imagine
funny.
if he did something last year and both Luigi and Bowser were in the news for like murdering CEOs?
Oh, that Luigi one. Can you imagine if Luigi Mangione went for Bowser? He went for Doug Bowser.
Luigi makes an assassination attempt on Bowser.
Like if it was alleged. Like if it wasn't
alleged,
that,
of course,
his healthcare wasn't denied. It's like they cancelled his Nintendo Switch account or something. Oh, that's a wiki we're not going to cover. We're not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But Lucas, there is a wiki we are covering, and I believe it's you presenting first this week. Yes, unless we've got anything else to promote or share housekeeping wise.
I guess just like do the usual spiel of like the subscribe, super chats, all that jazz.
Yes, because there is one thing I want to mention, but I think I'm going to save it for the midpoint.
Okay, but yeah, just reminder that we will read out any non-obscene super chats that we get while we are live, and any support is appreciated. And you can check out our links below to support us on Patreon and stuff. And actually, that is one thing we should mention, because we were a little bit late to record this podcast live because we just finished recording a podcast.
Yes, a special podcast with a special guest with more knowledge and insight into a topic than myself and Lucas have.
So yeah, we have officially started getting a couple of guests in for like the patron goal of guest podcasts. And yeah, spoilers, we've pre-recorded a couple. But
that's a good idea. It's a good idea to pre-make content. It's a good idea to get ahead.
But yeah, that means that we have the Patreon goal to meet, and as soon as the Patreon goal is hit, like presumably that day or the next day, depending on what time of the
the next day a podcast will be released.
There will be a podcast with a guest released, like pretty much straight away, depending on timing and stuff. It might just be like that next week's podcast. We'll have that discussion, but either way, we'll have a podcast ready to rock for when we hit that goal. It won't be like, we've hit the goal, now we're going to start reaching out to people or anything. It's like, no, we've cracked on, we've got ahead.
We have indeed, yes. We've been very proactive with it because this is an idea that myself and you are very, very keen to see the limits of.
It's been very fun to have a different dynamic. It's also been weird. I'm so used to podcasting with just one person to like have a point where I can kind of just sit back and let two other people talk and be like, yes.
The weirdest part for me is just the way the Discord call looks. You're at the bottom, so it looks like you're really lonely because you look like you're just waiting to like step in.
So yeah,
what we've got to talk about today, Monfrere.
Well, today I have brought a topic of a person that we've mentioned before, and I would like to do like Wiki Weekends episodes on some of the things that they have made, because
specific projects, yes,
they have projects that I'd like to be able to put clips in of. So I thought I'd be able to talk about them as a person first on the podcast, and then we've already mentioned one of the projects before of like something we'd like to cover at some point when we feel in the mood for it. But the said person is Charlie Brooker.
So one of my favorite creatives.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as well known in the US, although I believe their projects will be. But Charlie Brooker has been one of my favorite creators for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if people don't know who Charlie Brooker is, the beauty of Wiki Weekends is we're all on the same page, right?
Exactly. We are on a wiki page together, and obviously links, as always, to the articles can be found below, at least like after the live version, like, been edited.
Yes.
Just Google Charlie Brooker if you're watching live and get a Wikipedia page if you want to follow along.
Yeah, you can read along as if you like, but the beauty of Wiki Weekends is that a wiki is generally written for a general audience and is written in a way where it's supposed to get you up to speed with any given topic, regardless of your specific knowledge of it.
But Charlie Brooker, born the 3rd of March 1971, is an English writer, television presenter, producer, and satirist. He is the creator, writer, and executive producer of the sci-fi drama anthology series Black Mirror. So that's where people were most likely to be aware of his work.
And most likely that's the most well-known famous thing he's done. I don't think it's his best work, though. I don't think Black Mirror is his best work, but I do think it is his most important piece of work.
It's certainly his most important, but like, I think it's hard with an anthology series because obviously some episodes are just better than others, right? Some aren't quite as memorable,
and some episodes are produced and have hands from other people in them. Whereas I think his work that he is entirely in control of is excellent.
And they have also written for comedy series such as Brass Eye, The 11 O'Clock Show, and Nathan Barley. I'm not familiar with Nathan Barley.
I'm familiar with Brass Eye, though. Probably one of the greatest television shows. Probably the funniest thing ever made.
It is definitely up there, and it's got a very British sense of humour about it, does Brass Eye.
Which is led by one of my other favourite creatives, that is Chris Morris.
Yeah, I was watching the episode because, like, I can't remember what it was we were talking about.
I mentioned the clip that is Mark Heaps, right? We mentioned Mark Heaps, British character actor.
Is that his name?
Mark, I think we looked it up, right?
Mark Heap, yeah.
Mark Heap, yeah. We looked him up, and it's like he's in Brass Eye. He's just character actor as like weird neighbour guy.
Mm-hmm. And he was like the it was him in like the reconstruction of the story of like this paedophile that they're letting out of prison, and
And for
like
context, this is a parodic episode making light and
all
drawing
satire.
attention,
Yes,
yeah,
very much so.
of what was known in the UK as Pedogeddon.
Hmm.
It's a real thing where like they literally would have. I think it is an idea of how much they got the British public riled up and terrified of the idea there's just people willing like looking to snatch your children up. A pediatrician's office was set on fire because it had the word. It was a pediatrician, and they
Because
didn't know that meant child.
it's just the term for like child,
Yeah,
isn't it? Right? Yeah, like
yeah.
child related things, and it's like pediatrician and pedophile are very, very different things.
And Chris Morris satirized this very well. It's probably one of the greatest pieces of satire, and it's like it's up there with like A Modest Proposal, in my opinion.
And
Yep.
yes, the crux of like that bit that they do is that they're like, this could be your children in the park, and look at this pedophile coming in, and you don't know like what augmentations they've given him, and it's like him walking around in like robo crutches coming after these kids. It's like, oh my god.
It's like they've given him a robotic outfit. It's just the line as well. Like, do you think that he's going to attack your child with robo-enhanced wrong cock? And it's like, fucking Chris.
And I would really definitely recommend that, you know, if you enjoy Wiki Weekends, you probably enjoy our, you know, similar
British
kind of humor, right? And I would like to think that people understand that we are like talking about something that is like making light of a very like tough subject,
Serious.
but it's done in such a very dry and satirical way that like I went to go get that clip and ended up watching the entire episode after I'd edited the video, because I was like, holy fuck, this is like so hard to watch at times, but so fucking well done and funny.
It's so to the knuckle, right? And the thing it's satirizing and making fun of is not the subject matter, it is the media's response to it. For example,
it is
they
satirizing like the like media outcry and like all the crazy things that happened around that subject, not making light of like children being assaulted or anything.
Yes, and in Chris Morris's own words, it's like the media frenzy around it is so awful to the point where like they are like people become victimized twice.
Mm-hmm.
Of like you don't only have to deal with these horrible crimes being committed against you, you now have these fucking monsters at newspapers forcing you to relive it by endlessly publishing it on the pages.
I think like maybe more kind of like prescient things to compare it to is like how a lot of the media, especially like from what I see in like the UK and America, like is making out either like, you know, trans people or immigrants.
Yes.
Currently are like the two big topics that like media are just lambasting those entire groups of people as like fear mongering and just using them as scapegoats to detract you from the real problem.
Yes, and like one of the funniest things in that episode is just like what we've done is we've got a live feed now of us sending a child predator into space. Wait, we get some news now. Oh no, a child has been left inside the. Oh no, they're inside inside the shuttle. It's like we have a statement now from NASA. This is the last thing we wanted to happen. Okay, we'll stick with that story for the next like 3 hours, and it's like that's what the news did.
Yeah, and again, like that is not to say that I think pedophiles aren't a problem or anything. It's just like I was trying to find, you know, a similar kind of media frenzy to compare it to that people might be more familiar with nowadays.
Well, there's a great episode on guns as well, and that's one of the funniest jokes in that is like the gun problem is so bad in Manchester. This estate in Manchester has turned into a gun. And he just cuts to an estate in Manchester that kind of looks like a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Or the drugs episode, which is fantastic, where they get like, here's a new drug that the kids are taking. They get actual celebrities to sit down and they give them this like fake pill that's like this big. It's like the size of a cheesecake. This is a new drug that people are taking.
So Brass Eye is also another thing that I would love to make an episode on when I like get round to watching more episodes. But That's the only episode I've watched of Brass Eye in a long time.
Fantastic. I had to study it in university. My teacher went, "Just go watch this." And like, if you and we all watched it, and this is what you thought. And I was like, "Well, it's stupid, right? It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen." Like, here are some actual news clips and stories from the time that Chris Morris was satirizing, and it's like it's one to one. When you see stuff like something I think similar, it's Joseph McCarthy, who was like the senator, like the term McCarthyism is based on. There's a film made, I forget the name of it now, but where they have archive footage of him in the film. And when they ask people for their feedback of like, well, that dude playing McCarthy was really unhinged. Like, that seems stupid. It's like, no, that's archive footage of him in the Senate. That's the actual fucking dude. It's like, oh, you weren't. No, that's not satire. That's the guy. That's how fucking insane he was. Because he's the dude who just called everyone a communist.
And like, again, that's the type of thing that you think is like, oh, that's clearly satire and a bit over exaggeration. It's like, no, that's archive footage.
Yeah, and like in regards to Charlie Brooker, and he was asked, like, we know the world right now, America, like, shit sucks. Your president's coming in. He's like, it's not great. He was asked straight up, what do you think about? Do you think you could make Black Mirror with Trump? Do you think you could have predicted him? He says, well, if I wrote Donald Trump exactly how he is, not make him just as he is. If I made a character with orange skin and candy floss hair who can't string a sentence together and is a horrible, like, violently racist misogynist, and they screamed at people and called, like, soldiers fucking losers, and then they buried their wife on a golf course, and then they became the president of the United States. That's ridiculous. Like, that's just how he is, though. How do you make fun of that?
Yeah, it's the exact same problem that GTA 6 talked about, right? Of like, the ex-head writer of Grand Theft Auto turned around and was like, well, I'm really glad that at least we don't have to like release Grand Theft Auto 6 in a time where Trump was president, because that would have been really hard to make parody of. And it's like come all the way back around. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
And yeah, like going back to Brooker, they are not just a person that's like, you know, made TV things. They actually started out his career as a cartoonist.
Musician, right? Oh, cartoonist.
He produced adverts for the second-hand video game retailer CEX before becoming a journalist for PC.
No, he worked for sex.
He worked for sex, and I remember him mentioning that he got paid like, 50 quid or something to sit there and cartoon out a logo for CEX, and it's what they still use to this day. He's like, I farted out a logo for CEX for like 50 quid, and they've used it for like 20 odd years.
Yeah, and the thing you're not mentioning, Lucas, is his spouse. Because who's he married to?
Well, his spouse is Connie Hook, who is also a TV presenter from the UK, right?
Yes, and she was a presenter on Blue Peter, and she was a lot of people's childhood crush. Was old Connie Hook. I had a crush on Connie Hook when I was growing up on Blue Peter, and Charlie Brooker married her.
I knew I remembered the name Connie Hook. I couldn't remember, remembered I saw her on TV and knew her name from TV, but couldn't remember where from,
Yeah, she was a lot of people's first crush, was old Connie Hook. She works on Blue Peter.
Yeah, because Blue Peter's like a, kids to teenagers kind of TV show, right? Like,
probably one of the most important things the BBC's ever done.
Yeah.
Just in terms of just create the whole thing of it's the BBC has an ethos of it has to create content that is it's a net public good. Blue Peter's one of those shows where it's just
Blue Peter's definitely something that's like good for the public. Yes.
Yeah, it encourages children to engage with their local community, teaches them, and has still think the Blue Peter badge still gives you'd win it by sending in drawings or taking part in contests, and it gives you free access to virtually every landmark and museum in the UK.
Oh, right.
It's one of the things that a Blue Peter badge gives you, and I think it still is honoured to this day. Because it was funded by the BBC.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what a Blue Peter badge got you other than just a badge.
It gets you free access to a lot of stuff. Like you can get into the Royal Armies and stuff like that for free.
Oh, you can go steal the guns.
It's like they got them right.
Maybe one of the only things we didn't steal. think we might have
It's
made our own puns.
it's what we use to steal them.
It is, yeah. But then, yeah, he did after that become a journalist for PC Zone, and yeah, he's kind of quite publicly, or very publicly, I should say, a video gamer, and like was a games journalist for a while, and has made TV shows of. I think he like made one called "How Video Games Changed the World."
Yeah, he's a big proponent of video games as art, and he always tells the story of his like final university thesis was basically graded as a complete fail. Also, my camera's died again. I'll sort that out in a sec. Was graded as a fail because he wrote about video games, and the tutor didn't think he did my degree. He did media studies. They like it's not a piece of media worth criticizing as art, and he's like, yes, it fucking is.
And he like he stood his ground and failed because of that, right?
Yeah, got a bad grade.
Like yeah, he failed. His dissertation failed, I should say. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has presented a number of television shows, mostly consisting of satirical and biting criticism of modern society and the media, such as Screen Wipe, Games Wipe, News Wipe, and Weekly Wipe, and also 10 O'Clock Live. And
all of which are fantastic.
Screen Wipe is just based on making, criticism and stuff of like TV, Games Wipe games, News Wipe news. Weekly Wipe was just things happening in the week.
And it's not all of it is worth watching today because obviously it's him reacting to things happening at the time, but there are some absolutely incredible skits and informative pieces that he does that peel back the curtain on how the news is produced. Like I think I asked you once to track down a clip about how he tells you how the amount of effort that goes into making like just a talky bit to camera.
Yeah, and how it's an interesting watch. Like I think it was on one of his Screen Wipe episodes, and it's talking about how, like, say for example, a reality show like Big Brother would edit the same like kind of situation in different ways to make someone either look very competent or charming or incompetent or creepy or lonely or weird.
But not only that, he explains how that works and how it would be done, and also how that is done to influence you, the viewer. That's something I really appreciate and respect about him as a creator. That he has his media studies degree. He's aware of how media can be constructed to, like, sway someone's opinion or get across a certain viewpoint. And he breaks that down for people who maybe aren't familiar with how those techniques work or implemented, so that other people can avoid being influenced.
And speaking of Big Brother, he also wrote the 2008 horror drama series Dead Set, which was a really cool concept and very good show.
One of the best bits of zombie media ever made. It's up there with Dawn of the Dead, the original, and Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
although it's distinctly quite British.
It's very British, similar to like Shaun of the Dead, feeling extremely British. Like the concept of it is that it's a zombie apocalypse from the perspective of people that were in the Big Brother house and completely cut off from reality at the time.
Yes, but it's still a pretty good zombie show because Charlie Brooker is a fan of all those things. Make sure that like all the zombie action is actually really good. So I'd say if you want to watch it, folks at home, just imagine that it's set at the same time as Shaun of the Dead. Just imagine it's set at the same time as Shaun of the Dead.
So like a few years off, yeah.
Yeah, if you watch it like that and just think the same Shaun of the Dead is happening at the same time as this.
Yeah, definitely. And he's also written social criticism pieces for The Guardian and is one of 4 creative directors of the production company Zeppotron. And yeah, basically, I think it all started because of you asking me to hunt down those clips of like the Screen Wipe clip and the Brass Eye clip. All of a sudden, a lot of my YouTube suggestions became a lot of like old Charlie Brooker content, like Games Wipe, Screen Wipe, and things like that, and the how video games change the world and stuff. And I've just been like putting it on in the background over Christmas as I game.
It's really good watch, right?
And like all of it's really good, and I always find it really fascinating to go watch things that are like 10, 20 years old, and like things that I vaguely remember, but getting a recap of like, well, here's what the news was like in 2010 from Charlie Brooker's perspective and stuff, and it still holds up really well. It's really hard to track down any high quality versions of, sadly.
It's the problem, but one of the things I like about his work as well is because he is a just he watches and reads and plays everything. Like he is really, really clued in on like obscure ass shit.
Mm-hmm.
And something that's really interesting about watching like Screen Wipe and stuff is he'll go, hey, here's like an obscure old piece of news that I could just scour through the BBC archives and get his like team of like go through the archives and just find some weird shit.
And it's really interesting because I just watched a Screen Wipe episode the other day, which was him talking about like American TV compared to British TV.
Which is fascinating. I love that
And
episode. It's the differences in how they're edited and how that editing can make you feel and what impact it has and why it's important that it's different.
Yeah, and as well, just kind of like the risks that American TV is willing to take and how wild they are willing to get. And it kind of ends on the note of him being like, well, maybe British TV would be more successful and more, interesting if it was willing to take concepts a bit further than just like basic reality that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And this was said before he then wrote and produced Black Mirror, which takes things that we know and like elevates them. And basically the idea is like each episode is roughly based on the idea of like, well, here's a concept of taking technology too far and how scary it would be.
Yeah, what if your nan ran on batteries?
Yeah.
And the pitch for Black Mirror is like one of my favorite just little bits of writing where when Charlie Brooker is asked when is Black Mirror set, what does he say, Lucas, if you remember?
I don't remember now.
He says 5 minutes from now.
Oh,
so his pitch for Black Mirror is this is technology that either the way he says it is if the technology in Black Mirror looks fantastical, but if the government like announced tomorrow that it existed, you wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way he puts it. Like it may seem fantastical, but it's never so far out the realm of possibility where if they announced that they just invented it or it was already a thing and this didn't tell us, you would be like, okay, I can see it.
And it's really interesting because you say that he like consumes a lot of different types of media and just generally pays attention to a wide swathe of things.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes for like, very compelling writing, obviously, with Black Mirror and different concepts and stuff. But I was watching him in an interview from like the last couple of years and basically like getting asked questions from the audience and stuff and like, okay, so Black Mirror, it seems pretty well researched. Like, how much research do you put into it? He's like, basically none. And
yeah,
I was
a
like,
lot of it.
oh, it basically just like I think of an interesting concept and kind of try to keep it semi-grounded and go from there.
Yeah, because it's coming up with sci-fi concepts. I think he doesn't do a lot of research in regards to that because he doesn't want to inadvertently plagiarize.
And as well, like, he just a lot of the time, it's like, oh, hey, did you check, like, the medical accuracy of this thing or whatever? He's like, no. It's like, this comes across as, like, it's something that feels well-researched, but apparently he just admits that it's not.
Because he's writing the story, right? But I imagine when they're making the episode, a lot more work goes into, like, the research teams and stuff. Because something he's always been very open about is the strength of his staff behind the scenes. That's why the Screen Wipe bits where he goes behind the scenes really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll have episodes where he just goes, you might just think this is just me presenting this episode. Like I write some of it, but I also have a team of writers, and he'll cut to like his joke writers and stuff like that. And he'll make a joke about it and be very meta. But then he'll go like, here's our researchers. So, like, here's the guy who does our music. Here's the camera editor. But we've not just got one camera editor. We've got 3 camera editors. There's another one. There's the boom mic guy. The boom mic comes down. It's just as a student of like media, as someone who studied media studies, which is not oxymoron. It's just it's not a very well worded statement, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I find that so interesting and so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really I can't help but recommend it to people of like just when people ask me why did you study media studies, watch this and tell me you're not fascinated about
I always appreciate it when any form of creative work actually acknowledges the people behind the scenes and all the extra work that goes on. And I say that knowing that like
ball ache is.
Yeah, but like obviously I say all that and I will forever keep a secret that there's like 20 people working behind the scenes on Wiki Weekends. They don't exist.
Oh yeah,
they're not getting credit for shit.
No, the Wiki Mines. we've got like the Wiki Miners going in there. No, actually, no, let's not call them that. We've got the Wiki Gremlins.
The Wiki Gremlins, yeah.
Yeah.
The elves, as they would say on QI.
We don't want to rip off QI though, like Sewers. That's a joke, by the way. It's just me and Lucas.
It literally is just Carl and I, and if we ever do get anyone to help with like behind the scenes work, editing or anything like that, production work and stuff, we would definitely credit them and shout them out.
Of course, and that's something that like just Charlie Brooker does. And I think one of the most interesting bits he's done on Screen Wipe is the part where he says, "Okay, we're now going to do a talk to camera bit." And you might, and I think it's the episode he said, "I want to stand on a box and fall off the box." And he sets up of like, you might think that's very simple, but before I can do that, I have to we have to get approval from higher up. And he goes through the entire process of the ball ache it is to have him stand on a box and then fall off the box. And it's an entire 10-minute bit of him going through every laborious step that he's got. Every single person has to sign off on it. Everything he has to do, and he credits every person on a step of the way, and then he falls off the box. And it's like, so we truncated what was literally a week's worth of work for 5 seconds of footage. And now imagine every second of television you're watching, there's something like that going on behind the scenes. And it's just really good at helping you visualize it.
It's probably a bit more laborious because it's specifically for the BBC, right? So
he mentions that it's actually easier because he worked for the BBC, because the BBC is so massive, they have a lot of clout. Like he talks about, hey, we're on the Beeb. So if we want to use, say, for example, some Beatles music, we can do that because they have licensing. They've got like a massive licensing back catalogue.
Right.
Or a massive catalogue of licensed music. But if I want to play something that they don't have access to, like he mentions a song, they play it, we have to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for example, if I want to show you a photo of someone who actually exists, we have to pay them likeness rights. Yeah. So he holds up a photo of someone's like, we've now got to pay 50 quid to use this photo.
Unless, I presume, they're using like archive footage of BBC News or something, in which that's a little bit different.
Which he talks about, yes. But he says, but every time I hold this photo, we've got to pay another 50 quid. And he just keeps holding it up throughout the episode. To show that you've got to do that. And that's the thing, like, you might not consider it, but after watching that episode, I've never not thought about it when watching TV.
I've not watched that episode. I'll say it's like quite tough to find this footage. And I remember not long ago listening to a VGC podcast. They do gaming podcasts. And one of them was talking about how the fact that the first thing they did when they got the job at the BBC was to go to the archives and just download all of like the high quality Screen Wipe episodes onto their like flash drive or whatever.
It shows that they exist. They exist somewhere. Just that's another thing like he talks about as well, like archiving. And he's been like a firm proponent of that, of like, hey, this stuff exists, it's valuable, either as a teaching tool or just novelty and curiosity.
And it is funny
should be made available.
Watching the show like each time, like a lot of the episodes that are on YouTube, like will, you know, literally be like the introduction at the start is like, and here's the person talking from the BBC, and you're about to watch Charlie Brooker Screen Wipe on BBC 4, and then it becomes, and then on BBC 3, on BBC 2, and you can see it getting more and more popular and getting like higher up the ranks in the BBC channels.
It's legitimately one of my favourite creators, just because, like, I don't think there's a single thing he's done I'm not a fan of.
Not that I've consumed yet, yeah.
I include his wife in that.
Fuck's sake.
Go on, let's go. Let's continue.
God damn it, Carl.
I knew I'd get you with one. I knew I'd get you.
But yeah, like it's just like fascinating watching Screen Wipe as well, because it seemingly basically had like the built-in pilot episode or kind of pilot pitch for what became Kunk on Earth, because it has Diane Morgan playing Philomena Kunk in like moments of wonder every now and then as like a part of a bit on Screen Wipe.
Can we give a shout out to like Diane Morgan as well? Of like, is that one of the best characters? Because like her delivery, I don't think there's a comedian out there with delivery as good as hers.
She was deadpan.
But as well, if people don't know, like, just go look up Philomena Kunk or Kunk on Earth or CUNC or CUNK on YouTube, because not only is it genuinely hilarious, it's fascinating because they don't tell the experts. So do you want to explain the concept of like Kunk on?
Yeah, so it's again very much like a satire thing, and it's like basically taking something like, for example, William Shakespeare, and talking about William Shakespeare, but from the perspective of like a character that she plays, Philomena Kunk, who like doesn't understand any of it, and then they bring in like experts for interviews on the subject matter, but they research it very well to then make her seem as stupid as possible and like as completely useless as an interviewer as is possible, and just basically sit there and goad people and wind people up because she's that, ignorant on the topic.
But one of the things that's so fascinating about it is because it shows you how. There's a quote from Einstein of like, if you're truly an expert on something, you can explain it to a 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating to see which experts can deal with her nonsense and explain it, because you'll ask like a very silly question, but then if the expert isn't flustered, that they know their shit, and usually they do get someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about. To the point where I think it's Brian Cox, the astronomer and keyboardist of Dareem, when she did her episode on space, she's like, well, I'm not going to be a presenter anymore because we've already got the best episode on it.
And there's like some great, like, not quotes that I can remember, but like, vague recollection of interviews of different moments on Kunk on Earth. And like one is like talking to an expert on like religion and Christianity, and like she just sits down and is like, would you say that Jesus is the first victim of cancel culture? And the person's like, what the fuck am I meant to say?
But the thing as well is because she's obviously such a good satirist, and for fuck's sake, I think my camera's not even look so excited about Philomena Kunk, right? This is an episode of real bad screenshot. I don't know what my camera's doing, mate.
Oh, me neither.
Because they've got such a good writing team behind it, some of the quotes are actually ingenious, right? Like this one. Since light travels faster than sound, people may appear bright until you hear them speak. Oh, another one here. The only thing to eat was bread. Particularly difficult time to be a gluten intolerant. Luckily, nobody was yet middle class, so they put up with it.
There's another one where she asks somebody, like clearly like some kind of cultural historian or something, and she's like, so what would you say had a bigger impact on our culture? The Renaissance or Single Ladies by Beyonce? And just it's like, and it's such a well thought out stupid question.
Yeah. And it's great as well because you see the expert thinking, well, I've got to answer it, right? I've got another one here. Our world changed forever as religious messages of tolerance and forgiveness inspired mankind to fight like rats in a shoe for 100 years straight.
And basically, like, it seems as though the first, like, real appearance of that Philomena Kunk character that I have been aware of seems to be, like, derived from that bit on Screen Wipe, where they do Moments of Wonder, and it's just 3 to 5 minute segment of, like, the prototype for that show, essentially.
Yes, we've just got one more quote here, because it's just her on a BBC thing about environmental issues. Normally, I'd ignore the terrified pleading of a child, but even I've noticed the weather's been a bit weird this year, like it's on shuffle mode. At one point, the Amazon caught fire, which must have been a real blow to the people trying to chop it down. And it's like I said, it's that biting, satirical edge is still present in the show, and that means you've also seen any bits by Barry Shitpeas, my other favourite character, who should get his own show. He's the guy who reviews movies.
The guy who reviews movies?
Yes, they sometimes do movie reviews where...
You said Barry Shitpeas?
Barry Shitpeas, so Shitpeas.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it's like one of my favourite reviews of American Sniper is by Barry Shitpeas, where he says, well, American Sniper is about this American hero who shoots people in the back from very far away. And it's like, that's what the movie's about, right? And, like, I'm not ashamed to admit, like, a lot of my humour and writing style has been informed by the work of Charlie Brooker and other satirists like that. Of like, that's just such a great way of describing that movie. It's so flat, so dry, but it's right?
And so well written to the point where you can, like, just like one sentence is all you need, right?
Yep.
It's like the opposite of us, of we can waffle forever, that is our talent, but they can just bite it down to just one little snippet.
Oh, I've got another one here. Philomena Kunk talking to a philosopher. Hello, philosophy lady. Am I here? Yes. How do you know?
That's one of our favourite things, is every single time they set up an interview, and clearly this like expert has been liaised with for a while to set up the interview and everything. They've been reached out to by the team, and like okay, well, we're gonna go on to like television. She just opens up like, "Hi, science man, who are you?"
I love that when she does that as well. She's just how blunt she is. Because normally is what is a great way to disarm, and it's another way of like exposing like, well, these are experts. They're like, they are people who are very smart, but we shouldn't put them on a pedestal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The average person should be able to speak to them. They should be able to explain these issues to the average person. So I love that when they come on, it's like, who are you?
Yeah, I'm just like, but you reached out to me, like you got me on this TV show. It's like, no, who are you? Just great. And another person that appears every now and then is Limmy.
Yeah, he was famous on that because that's when I saw Limmy getting massive on Twitch. I was like, hey, good for him because he got started on Charlie Brookers.
Because I'd
People
seen
don't know.
Twitch clips of Limmy, and then he turned up on one of the episodes of Screen Wipe. I was like, hey, it's Limmy.
It's Limmy. And it showed up on there. It's like genuinely fantastic. When you look at like the talent that was working on that show, like Diane Morgan, like fair play to her, she is one of the best working comedians today. Like, her delivery, I don't think there's another comedian who can deliver those lines as good as she does.
And it's great because I basically pick Charlie Brooker because I've been watching multiple different things from him, as I say, just like over winter and stuff, especially as like all of the people, including, people like us, like not making as many podcasts over the holidays. And I'm like, where's my content? So I just went back and like binged a bunch of random stuff of his that I could find on YouTube. And it's been great to just like catch up on so much of it. And like I watched bits and pieces back in the day, but obviously it's been that long that I've forgotten a lot of it anyway.
Yeah, got another one here. The Victorian had horse-drawn buses, but you never see horses drawing anything these days. When did they lose their ability to draw? And it's just a shot of the expert going. It reminds me a little bit of another great satirist. That's Sacha Baron Cohen, although we probably won't cover them on Wiki Weekends anytime soon because their Wikipedia page probably has a big controversy section now. But
yeah.
I've got to give a shout out to the Ali G character of, again, it's a interview format where he played a character who is deliberately portrayed as working class to disarm the interviewee.
Who thinks that, like, is going to assume less of them because they are just like, oh, who's this Ali G guy, right?
Yeah, it's like, they lower their guard because they think, well, I'm not going to get, it's a low ball or softball interview, right?
And
he's
still not realizing that it's actually like behind the veil of Ali G is actually an extremely smart person who's going to pick them apart.
And like when still got one of the greatest opening lines to an interview, and he's interviewing David Beckham and Victoria Beckham. It's like, so when your children grow up, do you think you're going to want to be a footballer like their dad or a singer like Beyonce? And it's just so good.
To clarify for anyone that doesn't know, Victoria Beckham was, I was about to say a singer. She was part of a girl group, the Spice Girls.
We've covered the Spice Girls, haven't we?
She's probably like not very famous for that anymore compared to like being a Beckham and everything else that she's done, right? Like there are probably people out there now that don't remember that she started out as a singer.
No, but Lucas, I found the quote, the Philomena cunt quote.
Oh my God.
Why can't all the religions learn to live together in peace like they do in Ireland? What's a question to ask an expert? For context, there is literally a period of Irish history called the Troubles.
People did not get on in Ireland. Oh, but like, yeah, just it's gonna be great because it basically gives me an excuse to like mention all of these different shows now, so that we can then do Wiki Weekends on each individual thing and put clips in of them all, like Punk on Earth and like Black Mirror and other things. Yeah,
absolutely genius. Like, I can't get over how good Diane Morgan's delivery is. I'm just reading these quotes. I can hear him in a voice.
Yeah,
and just when you said that, who are you? That delivery is flawless. Because you see as well every time she does it, the person's like, "Well, I'm like Professor so and so of like so and so university. I'm an expert in this."
It's that
like,
thing,
okay,
isn't it? Of like when you get a cold call from the bank and they're like, "Can you just let me know who it is?" It's like, you called me. What do you mean? Who am I?
It's just the thing. Who are you?
Who are you?
Why do we cry when it's the onions that are getting hurt?
But yeah, I could go on for a long time. There's a long list of his different works and stuff on the wiki, but I think we can keep it short and sweet because we've already been recording quite a bit today. But like, yeah, just wanted to just mention Charlie Brooker and the joy that his work has brought me over the past like month or so. Just
as I've said, one of my favorite content creators.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like legitimately, I've much of my comedic voice and my work and my ethos and my approach to content creation has been inspired by Mr. Charlie Brooker. Like I said, I've voraciously consumed virtually everything he made. I went through my phase of like when I was in university of like, hey, okay, this dude's writing is fantastic. What else has he done? Screen Wipe, fucking sick. Games Wipe, awesome. News Wipe, let's go. Dead Set, kicks ass. Black Mirror, let's fucking go.
And contributing, as I mentioned earlier, to fucking Brass Eye as well.
Was Chris Morris, one of the favourite creators, the writer of what I think might be one of the funniest films of the last like 20 years, at least British films. Four Lions.
Oh, Four Lions is excellent.
Set in Sheffield.
Yeah, like I didn't. Charlie Brooker work on that as well, then.
That's Chris Morris.
Oh, Chris Morris worked on that, right?
Chris Morris worked on that.
Yeah. Four Lions is so funny, and like I watched that last year, thinking like, oh, this is a lot of tough subjects because it's about like terrorism and immigration and stuff. Like it's always something that's going to be very, very hard to do well.
That's why Chris Morris wanted to do it.
It's just fantastic.
You can't make it funny. He's like, yes, I can.
He fucking did.
Like, it still has one of the best jokes in that. Is like they have the white dude who's just wants to fuck shit up. So he's like the former racist, or he's still racist, but
yes.
he joins like the gang because he just wants to cause mayhem. And it's like, so what's your plan for the terrorist attack? And it's like, bomb a mosque. So why would Allah want us to bomb a mosque?
Oh,
right?
God, yeah. Four Lions is another one that like I'd love to cover at some point.
Because we need to put the clip in of when he just crashes his car by driving 1 mile an hour into a wall. I was like, that's right. Crazy. Because that's got some good big name actors in, right? It's Riz Ahmed.
Yeah.
It's Riz Ahmed and I forget the name of the dude who's like Wadge. But some fantastic deliveries. And where does the penultimate scene take place, Lucas?
Oh. Is it Chino's they saying or something?
Kebabish,
is it?
It takes place in Kebabish!
God, yeah. Like
my favourite takeaway.
If people want some true British culture, Kebabish is the way.
Kebabish is the way. It is indeed, and like that's where Four Lions penultimate scene takes place in.
It's like I can't remember exactly what it is, but isn't it the line something along the lines of like, "I'm gonna finish my kebab and then we're all gonna go to heaven."
Yeah, I'll finish this, lads, and we'll all go to heaven, right? It's just, his delivery is so perfect. Like, he's got some like the best, like the guy who's like, we're just going to talk about the film now. He's trying to set up like a suicide bomber crow, and just it's the image that's so good. It's on the front of the box. It's just a crow wearing a suicide bomber vest. And it's like, all right, brother crow, you're going to fly over there and you're going to take out them slags, right? Because he wants to take out Boots because women buy makeup, but he sends the crow so you go get them slags at Boots. And the crow just detonates.
Or the guy that like goes to pick up the explosives and just like trips and falls and blows himself up.
Just he decks it right, and it's one of those things where it shouldn't be funny, but it's so good.
It's done in the perfect way though, right?
It's perfect comedy shot. It's the perfect blend, black comedy, right? Horror and comedy.
It honestly is one of those things of like, even having already seen it before, I rewatched it last year, going, "There's no way it can't be like awfully offensive and not funny." And it's great.
It's almost like because Chris Morris spent a lot of time talking to the Muslim community.
Mm-hmm.
Like he went to mosques and he asked them of like, okay, so what are like the questions an annoying white guy journalist would ask you that you hate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Right, what are the issues that you're sick of dealing with? Like, what are the stereotypes you don't like?
And as well, right? It's written in a way that is not meant to be offensive or meant to really like incite any fear as well, right?
it's holding a mirror up to
talking
society.
about like completely incompetent terrorists.
Yes, but also as well like people's reaction to it, where it's really humanized. Well, like the Riz Ahmed plays like the main guy, where he talks about what it means to him, and he's like, because I live in a country where there's, my people who look like me are horribly mistreated, and then there's the other dude who's like, why do you want to do it? And he's like, he just wants to fuck shit up.
Yeah, he just wants to cause mayhem, right? Like,
yeah,
and it also breaks down like the fact that a lot of them aren't really sure that they want to be doing it. They just get convinced into it, and it's like
they just think they think it's cool, right? Where it's like when they go to the terrorist training camp, which is a great scene for a comedy, where just the dude picks up an AK-47, is like, yeah, right. That's fine. Like, what are you doing, you idiot?
So the drones are gonna find us.
And they shoot the rocket launcher and he just decks it, right?
I have to just clarify, like, I know that we are talking in this way, and like, I just have to clarify how much I know this sounds like a movie that can't be anything but horribly offensive.
It's so funny,
but it's really funny
because it's not making light, or it doesn't play into stereotypes. It's making fun of the stereotypes, or the people who would hold the stereotypes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, when you hear the concept of that film, there's no way it can be done right, and just they managed it.
Yep, and you can see my house in it as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's great. Well, it's just set all over Sheffield, right? I like watching it when you go, oh, I know where that is.
Yeah. But I think we can leave it there for my wiki topic, Carl, and
go, brother Crow, get those flags in boots. Why is so perfect?
Oh dear. But yes.
Man.
I guess we can just take a quick break, be back in a couple of minutes, and then we can get on to any housekeeping and Carl's wiki.
Perfect.
Oh, it looks like we are. And apologies, I've forgotten again, just like out of the rhythm of things. Just kind of forgot to play the music while we were gone, so it was a very quiet break time for everyone. But thank you.
While we were all contemplating, it was great. I was thinking of more Four Lions, and I forgot the best line in the entire film, where they go into the Club Penguin knockoff, Puffin Pally. And again, Riz Ahmed, he's a comedian. Everyone says, where he's there and he's got his head on his hands, and his wife walks in and goes, "What's up, honey?" He goes, "Roger's Puffin just told me to piss off." It's just...
yes, because for anyone that hasn't seen the movie, they basically use Club Penguin, but not Club Penguin. It's like Club Puffin, basically.
Puffin Palace, yeah.
Puffin Palace is like
Puffin Paradise.
Yeah, something like that. But it's basically Club Penguin. And that's how they communicate about their terrorist plots, because it's a private chat room, or not so private, but that's how they frame it.
Yeah.
Again, they're just idiots, right? It's like, you can't be using fucking Club Penguin to talk about your terrorist plan.
He's just like little shitty clip art penguin Puffin. It's like, why just Puffin just told me to piss off? Flawless.
Oh dear. But Carl, we're not here to talk just about Four Lions. Have we got any housekeeping?
We do kind of, because we have a Patreon. People can go to the Patreon, and we've got some goals on the Patreon, right? People do, but this is a thing. I'm not gonna rope you into this, Lucas, because you don't have much to do with it. But we used to have a lot of merch for Fact Fiend.
Yeah.
Right. So right now I'm wearing I found this. This is a Fact Fiend live T-shirt when we did live events.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I'm wearing some merch right now, but it's not Fact Fiend. It's for the Incredibles.
Which is incredible. And do you know where a bunch of that ended up?
In fucking Kebabish, probably.
Well, I don't know. Well, I didn't know for a while until I was tidying up my house the other day, and I found a big duffel bag that I'd been from 2 house moves ago that had about 40, 50 pieces of Fact Fiend merch in there.
Okay, I would like to just do a little thing here and be selfish and be like, I never got most of them. So I don't know if you could put something behind, because I only got the Knowledge Demon 1.0. That's the only shirt I ever really got.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's in there. So one of the things I'm going to say is if at some point the Patreon people are interested, like if 'cause we don't really do merch for Wiki Weekends, and Fact Fiend still has a Redbubble, I think. Psycho store is shut down because just some stuff that's obviously not my place to talk about. But I still have a bunch of it knocking about, and I use some. I've got this like as a gym shirt because I thought, well, I've got like 50 fucking t-shirts that are on the same style, so I'm not wearing the gym shirt. So I won't rope you into this, but if people are interested or would like to like get their hands on some of it, or would like me to go through it as like a patron, because I'll probably do it as a patron exclusive video of like, hey, here's all the merch that I've got. What should I do with it? Go to our Discord or our Patreon found below and just let us know in any way that you can, because otherwise it's just sat in my house taking up space. I've already got as much merch as I'd like. I've got like one copy of every t-shirt in my size. I've got some not experimental prototype stuff that's like different designs. I've got a few like mistakes that were made with printing, which is, I guess, technically one-offs. But for example, I've got a bunch of like these Fact Fiend Live t-shirts we gave them away live. I spent like 30 or 40 of those left. I gave a couple away and just thought they'd gone. I thought they just disappeared when we moved from office to house and stuff. So I don't want to rope you into like having to do that. So that'll be a thing I'll do on my own back and stuff. But I figured a Patreon's a good, and it's weird to give away Fact Fiend merch through the Wiki Weekends Patreon, but there is a bit of synergy there, I suppose.
Yeah,
and it's the only place I can think to.
Both channels are still related, and we probably have like quite a lot of overlap in our viewers, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I just didn't want to like rope you into having to like sort through that, but it's one avenue I could think to get rid of it that wouldn't be wasteful.
And speaking of like things exclusive to the Patreon, Carl.
Yes.
Like I literally checked my phone on the break as of time of recording. It's like the day before everyone is saying Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be revealed, right? And that's like been corroborated by quite a few different game journalists and stuff, and it's something that like I will be keeping an eye on. And I just figured, like as a free thing, but an exclusive to Patreon, but like free to all, just as a way to like kind of get people over to the Patreon and see what's going on over there and things like that. Just like put up my reaction to the announcement, whether it does happen tomorrow or whether it does happen in a month's time or whatever. Just whenever Nintendo decide to like put out their announcement for the Switch 2, I will do like a little reaction video to that, and I'll post it over on the Patreon so people can go watch it there, and just like a bit of a tease for stuff that we might do for like the gaming channel content as one of our goals.
Yeah, it's like a good, like it's just a good way of like tease people into that, while also creating something that you want to create, right?
Yeah, because it's not really the kind of thing. It's probably just going to be a short trailer. It's not really worth me doing an entire Twitch stream for.
No.
It's like, how can I just make like a little bit of smaller piece of content? So keep an eye out, like, Patreon and our Discord, like links are below in the description for the video of the podcast, and just, yeah, keep an eye on those spaces. That should be there whenever Nintendo decides to tell us anything.
But not like, suffice to say, Lucas will be fucking on it. Because when it comes to Nintendo, bro is on it.
On it when it comes to Nintendo, yeah. Have you got anything else to plug? Because I have one more thing to mention.
I believe it is the date of your birth, yes?
It would be the date of my birth, which is the 21st of January. And on the 20th of January, to celebrate, I'm going to be roping Carl into something which will be Marvel Rivals Monday.
Oh yeah, Marvel Mondays, let's go.
I will be playing some Marvel Rivals over on my Twitch, which is Legend of Kanto. Again, link in the description. And probably maybe around like 9 PM UK time. Get things started a little bit sooner for myself. Like Carl might not necessarily stick around the entire time, but I'll just be letting people from chat join in our Marvel Rivals team. We'll be playing casual, like quick play, no pressure on skill or anything like that. Just don't be an arsehole.
Yep.
And yeah, so we'll be playing some Marvel Rivals over on my Twitch. I'd say about 9 PM to 10 PM UK time where we'll start, and we'll roll that over like into my birthday, and I can shout out my own birthday that way, and just
yay!
Yeah, I will be playing some Marvel Rivals with chat. So if anyone, I know that like a lot of people, enjoyed that Jeff video that we put out last weekend, and I just want an excuse to do something for my birthday, so I figured why not jump on Marvel Rivals, something that both is really hot and popular right now, but also something Cole and I can't stop playing anyway.
Yeah. And you know what, Lucas, you're hot and popular too. Let's go. That Jeff video did real well.
It did, yeah. Nice to see a video pop off, yeah.
Yeah. And I won't step on the toes of your birthday because our birthdays are close to each other, but I'll announce what I'm doing for my birthday online when it's closer to my birthday and not as close to yours. Because that'd be rude, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But yeah, like our birthdays are only a couple of weeks apart, so no doubt you'll be hearing about Carl's birthday stream sometime soon. I don't have anything else to plug if you want to go on to your wiki now.
Yes, so my wiki for this week is on Hercule Poirot, and that is Poirot, because the character will always correct you on the pronunciation of his name.
It's not Poirot.
It's not Poirot now, which I always thought it was a kid. So it's Poirot. And I have an interesting history with Mr. Hercule Poirot. I'm a huge fan of police procedurals, and I thought about doing this on a regular episode to put clips in of, but the show, it's interesting, but there's not really much in the way of stuff you could cut to. So a bit behind the baseball here, very Charlie Brooker-esque. When me and Lucas are thinking of which wiki to cover on an episode of the podcast or the weekend episode, we normally have a discussion either with ourselves or together of, okay, will this episode work for the podcast because it's better to... Would we rather have something that's more discussion driven, or is this something where we can cut to clips because to get people excited about the thing? And Poirot, as much as I love the show, is not really something where the clips would sell people on it as much as, say, a Reacher or Monk, which is another show I'd like to cover. But I'll have to wait until I've finished the series because I'm currently rewatching all of that.
Yeah, because it's a lot more like deliberation involved, right?
It's a slow burn.
Yeah, there's not really like big like action scenes to cut to or like specifically short funny clips or anything.
There's some funny clips, but it's more character moments. And if you don't know the character of Poirot, there wouldn't be any reason for you to laugh at them. But I am a huge fan of Poirot. My history with it is, this is like, we're going to get some deep Karl lore now. So my history with Poirot is, I started watching it a few years ago when I lived with my old housemate. And I've had many a housemate, but this is the housemate who was in a band, and his girlfriend was a tattooist. She's the tattooist who did my tattoo.
Oh, nice.
She designed the tattoo while watching Poirot. And if anyone knows, like, the backstory behind this tattoo is, I played through Super Metroid, like on the TV in the house, and she was just downstairs, just drawing, and she was just drawing characters from the game. She was pretty cool, right? I went, yeah, that's sick. Do you want to do as a tattoo? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. And that's how that tattoo started. Which she did the full drawing. We would just sit down, we watch Poirot together with a cup of tea.
Nice.
And the story I've told on the channel before is, I remember I came in once, and she was crying. It's like, what's up? And she was watching the last episode of Poirot, where he's like all old and he's in a wheelchair.
Oh dear, but yeah, like, it's not something I'm particularly familiar with. And is Poirot Agatha Christie?
It's Agatha Christie, yes. It's an Agatha Christie novel, and the character is very famous and been portrayed by many actors who we'll get to, but the version of, like, Poirot to me is David Suchet. He is the definitive version of the character. There's very few characters in fiction that are as definitively and synonymously linked with a singular actor as David Suchet is with Poirot, to the point where, like, the Agatha Christie Society is like, David Suchet is Poirot.
And I don't know whether that's the person that I put in the thumbnail or not. I just
that's David Suchet. So when you Google Poirot, it's fucking him who comes up.
Yeah. Like, I was just like, this is a HD picture that I can use. I'm just going to use that one.
This as well, because he looks exactly like the character does. But, you know, we'll go through the wiki now. If anyone unfamiliar with Mr. Hercule Poirot. So Hercule Poirot is a fictional Belgian detective, and that's the thing. People say his friends are not French, and Belgian.
But, like, obviously, Belgium, a lot of people speak French Belgium.
Yep. That's one of the things he always corrects. It's like they always say, oh, that stupid little French.
Belgian French, sorry. Right way to put it around all.
Yep. You know, he's created by British writer Agatha Christie, and he is Christie's most famous and long-running character, appearing in 33 novels, 2 plays, and 51 short stories published over a 55-year period.
33 novels?
Yep, over 55 years.
And that's just the Poirot stories. Agatha Christie was fucking on it.
She was. She wrote a book every year. She'd talk about that because it was before, like, as famous as Agatha Christie is, she always said I had to write a book every year to keep in the comfort to which I become accustomed. Poirot has been portrayed on radio, in film, and on television by many actors, including Austin Trevor, John Moffat, Albert Finney, Peter Ustinov, Ian Holm, Tony Randall, Alfred Molina, Orson Welles, David Suchet, Kenneth Branagh, and John Malkovich. So quite an eclectic and esteemed range of actors who played the great detective.
Yeah, obviously, because it's a thumbnail. I'd seen a couple of people mention Alfred Molina in chat earlier, and I was like, not really very familiar with his work, other than, you know, just Dr. Octopussing around. And
Doc Ock.
It's very funny that, like, as well, I played, like, the first couple of levels of that indie game, the Indiana Jones game, and was like, that's fucking Alfred Molina. And it's like, oh yeah, he's the guy that, like, stabs him in the back in Raiders, right?
Yeah, Alfred Molina is a very accomplished stage actor, and one of the all the behind the scenes stuff of Spider-Man 2. He talks about how he used his stage acting experience to bring life to Doctor Octopus because he thought Doctor Octopus would be very theatrical because he talks to his tentacles, right?
Power and he saw of the sun.
Yeah, he saw it very because he saw like Doctor Octopus being very theatrical.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of comic books would be like, you know, they're very over the top and dramatized, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, you might as well use your theatre experience, like stage acting experience, because that's naturally got to be very over the top just because you're performing to people that are very far away.
Also, keep in mind as well, he was playing a man in a trench coat with octopus tentacles. You're allowed to get a bit silly with it, aren't you?
You've got to be getting a bit silly with it. It's like, it's still why, as much as I do, like, you know, when they do it well, like The Dark Knight, it's really hard to not make those things very silly because you're talking about a man in a trench coat with giant octopus sentient arms.
Yep. And that's the thing. And then Alfred Molina was like perfect to play that. But I think David Suchet, he's Poirot.
Mm-hmm.
There will never like. There are some like they say there's some characters or some actors where they embodied the role so much you can never recast them. As David, he is the character. So he is him. And when I think like to the point where you said you googled Poirot, right? It's 50 fucking pictures of this dude, right?
So it's not the kind of situation where, for example, with Doctor Who, like different people have their different Doctor. It's pretty much everyone associates David Suchet with Poirot.
Pretty much, yeah. But there is like the stories are very popular, so the story's been adapted a lot. Think of like Sherlock Holmes, right? How many actors play Sherlock Holmes? And it mentions here in the influencers, Sherlock Holmes was a obvious influence for Agatha Christie because, yeah, of course, if you're writing a detective story, of course you're inspired by Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, that's one thing that I never really like have right in my head is the timelines of when different writers were alive and writing and stuff. Like, I would never have been able to tell you that like Sherlock Holmes was so far before Poirot that it would be an influence, but I like not even a fathom of when most, you know, the timeline of when most novels were written or anything.
Some people just get a brain fog when it comes to that sort of thing. Like just dates are difficult to grasp, and it's like I'm bad with that when it comes to saying how long ago things were. Because I'm really guilty of saying like, oh yeah, this game or this movie released like 10 years ago, and you always go in the mic like it's about 25 years ago. I'm like, oh fuck, it was, wasn't it? So we all have those blind spots.
But yes, all I'm really aware of, I've not really read much Agatha Christie outside of like, a couple of novels in high school or whatever, just as like things that I was studying at the time. But generally speaking, I've not read Agatha Christie, and I'm aware of just a very, very accomplished writer in the sense of like one of the top names that you'd think of when it's like name a novelist, right?
Yeah, well, it's Murder, She Wrote as well. She did, right? That's old Biddy who just goes around, just everywhere she goes, some fucker dies. Like, stop going to place with her.
Really into just having characters solve things.
She loves it, right? And speaking of solving things, like one thing that Agatha Christie could not solve is how much she fucking hated Poirot, because we have here a section on popularity. So, Poirot appeared in The Mysterious Affair at Styles, published in 1920, and exited in the story Curtain, published in 1975. So 55 straight years of writing about this character. Following the latter, Poirot was the only fictional character to receive an obituary on the front page of the New York Times.
You know.
By 1930, so 10 years into writing the character, she said she found Poirot insufferable. By 1960, she felt that Poirot was a detestable, bombastic, tiresome, egocentric little creep. Despite this, he remained an exceedingly popular character with the general public.
But
Chris,
it kind of like is fascinating the way that she sat there as like the creator and writer of that character, still going like,
I hate him.
I hate him, and I hate the way that he is. It's like, you're the one who writes him. You can change that, but that's not Poirot then.
No, yeah, it wouldn't be. Also, you could just kill him off, right? Which she did 55 years later, and she said she refused to kill him off for as long as she did, claiming that it was her duty to simply produce what the public liked. And that's one thing about Agatha Christie. She was a workhorse.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book every fucking year because just bums on seats, right? If you want to keep getting money, you want to keep your name in the press, keep making the shit that people like.
It's smart,
people
right?
Like
it's like, it doesn't matter whether you hate writing Poirot. Poirot is the one that's like being read and keeping your name in the lights, right?
Yeah. It's like, hey, like she doesn't like Poirot as a character, but people like him, so I'm going to keep writing it, right? You've got respect for that at least, right? Just workhorse of an author. 55 straight years writing about the same character. There's very few authors who can, creatives even, who can even approach that, really, is there?
I can't think of anyone even close. Like,
maybe we talked about in the Frasier episode, right? We looked up like actors who played the same character for quite a long time. There was like a few soap actors who played characters for like 40 years.
True. Yeah.
Which must be weird to think like the majority of their life was spent living in the shadow of their own creation.
Mm-hmm.
Which must be a strange thing to experience. I think I was talking about it earlier with a friend of mine. We were talking about, like, because he's got a kid, and he was like, oh, his kid's reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And he's like, yeah, the author's like got a lot of other books, but you can tell that he just rewrote The Very Hungry Caterpillar. But at the same time, I don't know how I'd feel about being that guy. Because there's two ways you'd approach it. Either, hey, I'm a fucking millionaire about writing a story about a caterpillar. That's a lot of people's first book. Or ultimately, you can imagine someone who's got a bit more ego about them would get upset about the fact their most well-known creation is a book for children, so they'll never be taken seriously as an author or a creator.
I mean,
how would you feel?
But like, I do wonder whether, like, you know, because some people are just, well, I've got my bag from writing kids' books. I'm not going to aspire to do anything other than write kids' books.
Yeah, that's the thing. Would you? Because I think if I wrote something like The Very Hungry Caterpillar, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah. I'm totally on the same page. If I could ever get anything to be as well known and successful as The Very Hungry Caterpillar, I would just, like, you know, brush my hands off, be happy, and just be like, well,
if I ever did that, as I said, there's probably some writers out there who get annoyed about it. I'm not sure how the writer of Very Hungry Caterpillar feels. I'm just using it as an example, but I can imagine there are writers out there who would be annoyed about constantly being associated with something childish or seen as lesser. Whereas there's others who, like me and you, be like, fucking yeah, get that bag.
Yeah. It's like...
I'm reminded of it's Bill Watson, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes, a creator I greatly respect. I guess we're talking about a lot of creators I like today, because when he finished Calvin and Hobbes at the height of its popularity, like published in like thousands, I think it was at the apex of its success, like newspapers, syndicated, sorry, just saying, thousands of newspapers across the world. At the height of its success, he just went into his editor's office and went, I'm done. What? I'm done. I've told the story I want to tell. I'm good. Bye.
Can you imagine how hard that editor scrambled in that moment?
Well, they did, and like he was offered millions to come back. He would get fielded calls to this day from all manner of people wanting to adapt it, to sell it, to buy it from him, including Steven Spielberg, who personally called him up asking, I want to direct a movie based on Calvin and Hobbes, and just Bill Watson never called him back.
Is this why he ended up doing Tintin instead?
It might have been.
Which most people say Tintin is meant to be Tintin, apparently.
It's pronounced Tintin. Yeah. It's Tintin.
It's Tintin, but it's like...
Well, yeah, like, and Bill Watson was a very famous, like, he came back for, like, first time in, like, a decade, 2 decades maybe, and wrote or produced a guest comic for a webcomic where they made like a silly joke comic about Bill Watterson in a bar. Of like, oh, some like a hot girl comes up to him and sees him doodling and goes, "Oh, that's quite good." So this isn't what happened, but this is just the comic artist like dramatising what they imagine he does because they've never heard, no one's heard of him in like 2 decades. He goes, "Oh, I used to be an author. Have you published anything that I might recognise, like Calvin and Hobbes?" And it smash cuts to them just in bed together, and he's like, "I should probably start doing that." And apparently, Bill Watterson found that so funny, he submitted some guest comics to the dude.
Oh, fair enough.
Well, can you imagine though, like? I'm not sure if Bill Watterson's ever done that, but I bet he fucking could, right?
It's weird, like, the thing I most associate with Calvin and Hobbes is, like, people getting weird Calvin tattoos.
Or the Calvin pissing on something,
Calvin
right?
pissing on stuff, yeah.
And that's the one time he's ever given an interview, because he doesn't give interviews either. When he was asked to like, do you ever regret not merchandising? Because the only merchandise that exists are like prints of the books. That's the only thing you can buy that's official is the prints of the books, and I think maybe there might be like there's probably something else you can get, but there's very little actual official merchandise. Like, the only thing I regret is not anticipating how much people wanted to buy pictures of Calvin pissing on things.
Yeah, it's weird.
But there's another story about that, 'cause a friend of mine works in the movie industry. He's not an actor or anything, but he was a runner for a while, and which is just, hey, get me a cup of tea. And like just basically just been a dog's body for like movies and stuff for years now.
When Jeremy Clarkson punched him.
He was the guy who didn't get in the sandwich, right? But he told me about how he got speaking to the guy who designed the Death Star. He's done a bunch of other stuff, but he designed the fucking Death Star. Yeah. He's got a piece of it in his house. And he said he's like his daughter's or something is like really into like comics. So he just whenever she wants to go to an event, a Comic-Con or something, he just calls up and goes, "Yeah, I'm the guy who designed the Death Star. Can I get a ticket?" And like, yeah. Of course he's gonna get a ticket, right?
Yeah, it's weird though, because like even at one point we could get tickets to Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, but you know the guy who designed the Death Star's getting whatever he wants, right?
Like VIP access for them, right? But like, yeah, like I think that side of things is all falling apart because like I'm still on like the Discord for that, which has not been touched for like the Reed Pop ambassadors and stuff, and it's like, yeah, there was just a point where they were like, yeah, let us know if you want to go to Comic-Con and we'll like get you in the green room, get you free tickets and stuff, but neither of us ever took advantage of that, I don't think.
I never have because I don't like crowds.
I mean, that would be nice to have the option to go into the green room and get away from the crowds, right?
Like, all that stuff I get invited to it, or if I wanted to, I could probably like swing my dick around and get access, but I've just never thought about doing it because similar to like, you know, I mentioned like the Very Hungry Caterpillar guy, I'm happy with the success that I've achieved. I'm happy just staying in my fucking lane and making silly videos the rest of my life. I don't want much more than we've got, besides maybe a couple more people on the Patreon so we can make gaming content.
And also, you know, if like big companies want to sponsor it, I'll take that too.
But yeah, it's just I love just those stories of people like, you know what, fuck it, yeah, it's good. So there's another story. It's the dude who plays the villain in Happy Gilmore. Do you have a dipshit golfer?
Oh yes, yeah.
He's talked about how he was asked in an interview, like, well, you play a villain, and when it comes to playing movie villains, people can't be kind because people can often not be kind because they struggle to distinguish you from the character you played. If you run into trouble with that, and you go, sometimes, but on the plus side, I haven't had to pay for a round of golf in 20 years.
Yeah.
Because every time he goes to a golf course, they either let him on for free or like someone there offers to pay for him.
Yeah, like,
and all he has to do is just like do the shoot McGavin thing, and he gets a free round of golf or he gets free drinks at the bar whenever he wants. It's like, you know what? Again, well fucking played.
Yeah, like it. You know, obviously, it'd be nice to probably be more successful. Like, I haven't seen that guy in that many things, but it's like it's always nice to just have your thing. Like, I just go to a golf course and get it for free every time.
It's like there's Rick Astley, isn't there? When they asked him about, do you mind being known for being a one-hit wonder? He's like, it bought my house.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, or when he got asked, like, 'cause I hate when musicians don't sing their greatest hits, or they feel like they're above singing their greatest hits. Right? You must have like heard the stories of like when like an artist, they won't play their like big number because I'm playing my new stuff.
I know, like, it was a big deal for a while. Hayley Williams wouldn't play Misery Business, and then recently
Yeah.
like decided, no, fuck it, I'm going to own it.
It's
But
my
that
song,
was
right?
for creative reasons rather than just like, no, I don't like that people only listen to the old stuff.
There's been artists. That's the first example that pops to mind, right? I imagine, but there are artists who've done that, and when Rick Astley gets asked, like, of course I'll sing that song. Half the people in the audience are only there to hear that song. Why would I not sing it?
Yeah. Like, I might leave it close to the end so that you stick around, but I'm not just gonna like be a dickhead and go like, oh no, I'm not playing the one song that you're all here for.
Just sing it as his encore.
Like when I went like go see My Chemical Romance, and it's like,
Of course they're playing I'm Not Okay, right?
Yeah, they opened with that, which I was surprised with. Because I thought it'd be like either that or Welcome to the Black Parade as their like final encore song. They actually ended with Helena,
That's a bop. It's
yeah,
like,
it is.
I went to see Journey. They open with Don't Stop Believing, and I tell the story every time, but I was like in the nosebleeds, right?
Right.
And the people at the front, like they've got like the best view. Journey came out, played Don't Stop Believing as their first song. About 50% of the people in like the first 5 rows left and never came back. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
Those tickets I looked at afterwards, like they were like $400. You pay $400 to listen to one song.
You'd stick around for a bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well, either way, right? We'll move on now, or we'll get back to Mr. Hercule Poirot. And now we have his appearance and proclivities. He'd hate that I'm mispronouncing these words. So, Captain Arthur Hastings' first description of Poirot is as follows. He was hardly more than 5 feet 4 inches, but carried himself with a great dignity. His head was exactly the shape of an egg. And that's why I think David Suchet is the perfect actor to play Davy Suchet, or to play Hercule Poirot, because Davy Suchet's head is shaped like a fucking egg. If you look up Davy, it's like, he looks so much like an egg.
And I am wondering now, Carl.
Yeah.
There is, I know I always bring it back. I always find my way to bring it in.
Okay.
But I wonder whether there is a One Piece character that is basically based on Hercule Poirot then. Because there is a character called Tamago, which means egg.
Okay.
And they dress like Poirot with like the mustache and the hat and everything.
Okay. They could be based on him, aren't
they? They could be. I'll
say, if you could though, could you put up a picture of David Suchet to show people how much his head is shaped like an egg?
So I'm going to show you this character. I'm going to put that in our chat. And then I'm going to put both up so you can compare.
Okay. I can see that. And Hercule Poirot does have a cane in some appearances.
Fair enough.
And he is wearing the hat.
I will get both Tamago and David Suchet as Poirot up.
But like, Matt, is that not the most egg-shaped man you've ever seen?
Well, I'll find out, won't I? Poirot. It is funny though when I just say like, I like how it comes up Poirot egg now because I just googled like Eggman One Piece. Poirot David.
Well, it's literally one of like the most, because throughout the books the most common recurring description is a head shaped like an egg. Like, it's one of those things where it's like it's a detail to help people visualize the character in their head, and just Davy Suchet, his head is shaped so much like an egg.
You know what might be the scourge of the internet, Carl?
Is it AI?
No, it might be WEBP files.
Oh, whatever they are, they can bollocks.
It's like every time I go to save an image, do you want to save that as a WebP? I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
Nobody does. Oh, but let me get those images up while you continue going through the wiki, Carl.
Yes, so the description continues. His mustache was very stiff and military. Even if everything on his face was covered, the tips of his mustache and the pink-tipped nose would be visible. The neatness of his attire was almost incredible. I believe a speck of dust would have caused him more pain than a bullet wound. Yet this quaint, dandified little man, who I was sorry to see, now limped badly. He had been, in his time, one of the most celebrated members of the Belgian police force. And one of his most iconic features is his tiny little bald head and his immaculately coiffed moustache.
I'm
In the later books, his limp is not mentioned, suggesting it may have been a temporary wartime injury. In Curtain, the final story in which he appears, Poirot admits he was wounded when he first came to England. Poirot has green eyes that are repeatedly described as shining like a cat's when he is struck by a clever idea, dark hair which he dyes later in his life. In Curtain, again, the final story in which he appears, he admits to Hastings that he was taken to wearing a wig and a false moustache.
So, are people really going to tell me in chat that Tamago character in One Piece is not based on, like,
Okay.
Poirot? Which is
Egg
excellent, because,
detective.
like, I recognized it kind of as, like, an iconic look, and I've only just, like, put two and two together now. Oh, God, that's excellent.
Right. Frequent mention is made of his patent leather shoes, damage to which is frequently a source of great misery to him, but comical to the reader. So he always steps in something or damages his shoe, and because he's like a very fusty like guy, he's like, oh, he's very. The word is flappy.
The real
Do you want to say
question,
someone flaps?
yeah,
Right. Flustered.
Mm-hmm. I want to know, has he ever done, like, the Sideshow Bob rake?
I think if he did, he'd fly through a window.
'Cause, like,
This is a man who like loses his shit when like he has to sit down on a dirty chair. And there's a very famous story told about David Suchet, where there's a scene called for him to go sit on a bench, and David Suchet walks over to the bench in character, pulls out a handkerchief, lays it down on the bench, and sits down on it. Director, cut. What are you doing? David Suchet, very very professional, very courteous. Poirot would not sit on a bench. He would not sit on any place where the public has sat without first either cleaning it or making sure the surface on which he sits is clean. The only thing he knows that is clean is his own handkerchief. Director tells him, don't do that. David Suchet says, that's how I'm doing the scene, because that's what Poirot would do. Him and the director come into a standoff. David Suchet goes back into his trailer. They think he's sulking. Comes out an hour later with a copy of the book, open on a passage that says, before Poirot sits down, he puts down a handkerchief. Shows it to the director. Director has to relent.
It kind of reminds me how in Breaking Bad there's that very, like, insignificant but significant moment of, like, Gus when he knows that he's poisoned himself. Like,
Yes.
makes sure to, like, be very elegant in the way that he, like, tucks away his blazer and stuff before then, you know, he folds away his jacket, puts it on the side very nicely, like, everything is, like, still very prim and proper, and lifts up the seat very slowly, and then decides to, like, vomit out the poison.
Yeah, because Giancarlo Esposito, I've got his name, I was going to call him Gustavo Fringer, that's the character, has talked about how he and Vince Gilligan, and they were coming up with the idea for the character, talks about how he has OCD because he wants to be in control of everything. And he would never allow himself to lose control, because the one time he lost control, he lost his lover.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he maintained control at all times, why he's so specific. It's like, reminds me of, there's an interview with Laz Alonso, the actor who plays Mother's Milk in The Boys. And he's talking about how he, he loses weight between seasons.
Yes.
Yeah. I found this fascinating when he talks about it, where he says, well, we filmed like season 3 during the pandemic, so there was a lot of Grubhub, a lot of Uber Eats, and I put on a lot of weight. And I wanted to lose the weight, but I didn't want to look different unless the difference could be explained away in character. And then, in the 4th season, Mother's Milk gets a promotion. So he says, well, how would Mother's Milk lose weight? Well, he's got OCD. He'd, of course, take it to the extreme. So I did what Mother's Milk would do. I started rationing out my food, counting everything out. As Mother's Milk would, I shaved, very, very closely shaved as well, because Mother's Milk wouldn't keep his beard. He'd be complete, he wouldn't. Yeah. And I like the idea that he got in shape in character. So even though his appearance change is dramatic, it is in keeping with how the character's appearance would change if they experienced a similar level of change in their life.
And, like, added stress and stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, how would my Mother's Milk maintain control? Well, he'd take control of one thing that he could, his appearance, and he'd lose, obviously, his stress. And I found that interesting, that that's how he approached his weight loss.
Yeah, yeah.
He didn't want to lose weight.
A lot of actors, like, will use like kind of the justification of the character as the like motivation to make sure that they like either lose or gain weight or muscle or whatever it is.
Yeah, because I think
Change
he
their
wanted to lose the
appearance.
weight, but he had to convince the writers that if he lost the weight, the change would be justified in a story by people who were able to like pick up on the clues or were familiar with the character in Mother's Milk.
There's like, again, always find a way to talk about One Piece, but like the live action, like season 2 has obviously been being filmed, and they had a character, Alvida, who like starts out like in the very first episode as like this very big like woman who is clearly overweight, and they make fun of her appearance. And then like later down the line, you see she's gone under like a drastic weight loss, and the joke is like, oh, now she's hot.
Mhm.
And the actor that they got was like on the bigger side, shot all of the scenes where she's like her initial weight, and then lost all that weight mid shoot, and like just like shrunk down massively, just either to commit to the role or to use that as an excuse to be able to lose weight. You don't know
Why wouldn't
behind
you,
the
right?
scenes, right?
You got like millions of dollars worth of like Hollywood money and the best trainers in the world at your beck and call.
Yeah. Same with like when Rob McElhenney made that satirical post of it's easy, right? Just get like a studio to pay for 6 months of like your diet and training, and you don't have to stress about anything else.
Have a chef coming to make all your meals. And there's something similar. We talked about Spider-Man earlier. In the first Spider-Man movie, they filmed it out of order. Tobey Maguire filmed all of the, well, they're not out of order, but they filmed all of the scenes of young, shitty pre-Spider-Man Tobey Maguire before, and then he went and put on a bunch of weight, and then they filmed the rest of the film.
Oh, right, yes.
So he, like, the shift in his appearance is genuine. That is what Tobey Maguire actually looked like.
They just like found a way to hide his buffness in the first couple of scenes.
No, which they've done in other movies. Or I think the best way they've hidden it is in Captain America, where they just got a dude in who was like 5'4" and like had the same build as Skinny Steve.
They like just found a clever way to realistically like CG Chris Evans's head and like shrink it down to the appropriate proportions, right?
There was a really interesting behind the scenes like mini doc about it, where they knew that the effect was good when they were talking to someone. I'm like, man, how long did it take Chris to put all the weight on then? And they were showing it off to a producer, and they went, "That's it. The effect is seamless."
Because it's shockingly seamless in that movie.
It's so good, it makes you think, well, that was 10 years ago. Why does the CGI look like shit now?
I mean,
right?
Like budget and time, right? I mean, mostly just time.
I also like the bit of the story Hayley Atwell told, where when Chris Evans, that's the first time she'd seen him, like with his shirt off, and the bit where like Agent Carter reached out to touch him was like, genuinely,
yeah.
She was just like so much. She'd never seen such like a glistening man.
Like
so her
like most just perfect rounded glistening pecs you've ever seen in your life.
And she just went, and then she caught herself doing it, and they left it in the film. And she said, "Well, again, story justification." They said, "Well, her character. That's the first moment she realized she's attracted to Steve, because she realized like she'd heard the stories about he's going to become the perfect man."
I mean, honestly, I think that was the first moment a lot of us realized we were attracted to Steve Rogers.
It's the first time a lot of us have seen the perfect man.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite bit is like whenever you tell that story, you always get some like weird asshole go, "We imagine if the roles were reversed." It's like, have you seen Hayley Atwell? Yeah. Right? Have you seen her when she's Agent Carter or like Agent Britain, right? Captain Britain. I'm sure if they.
I mean, we haven't seen her
in live action.
In live action as Captain Britain, yeah.
I'm 100% convinced that Steve Rogers would have done the exact same fucking thing if this 7.5 foot tall woman come out of the thing, right?
Yeah. I think we all would. Like, just bow down to either of them.
That's the thing where they try and use it as like a gotcha of like, can you imagine if the roles were reversed? It's like, what if a giant muscular woman came out? Yeah. We'd all be like, oh my god, let's go.
It's one of my like favorite like small moments is just in the Winter Soldier when they go into the Apple store and they make the joke of like, oh, you guys have like got the same glasses or something. And he's like, yeah, but like look at this fucking specimen of a man. And it's like, yeah, you would still notice a guy that looks like that, even if you didn't notice he was Captain America. When
You
he's on
still
the
notice.
disguise, he's still like a 6 foot something tall, perfect man.
It's like, wow, you're really wide. Do you have trouble getting indoors? Right?
It's
You know,
just
speaking of someone who's not the perfect specimen of. Actually, you know what? Poirot, he is a fucky specimen. Among Poirot's most significant attributes is the sensitivity of his stomach. The plane drops slightly. Mon stomach, thought Hercule Poirot, and closed his eyes determinately. It's like, oh.
so like
Poirot's appearance.
he's not like, lactose intolerant or something.
He just has a very sensitive stomach. He's a man of a nervous disposition, which is a very common trend among one of my favourite tropes and one of my favourite genres, which is the eclectic solver of crimes. And that is that person is an abject fucking coward. And it's weird because like Sherlock Holmes, which is like the prototype on which all these are based, is not a coward. In fact, in his original stories, he kicks some fucking ass.
He kicks ass, and also like obviously like is kind of more on the adrenaline junkie side of things than the nervous disposition, right?
Yeah, I never forget, like Sherlock Holmes's main villain. They ended with a fist fight where they fell over a waterfall. That's pretty metal, right? But like
pretty metal.
a lot of the
it's a hell of a way to go.
a lot of the Sherlock Holmes inspired like characters, Monk, Poirot, Patrick Jane from The Mentalist, all of those, the trend is that they are averse to violence.
But to be
Even
fair,
though
the greatest detective in all of media is a coward.
who's that?
Scooby-Doo.
Oh yeah, true.
Like I know that like not technically a detective, but a detector.
It helps. But I do find that strange how that's a very common like trend among these characters that are inspired by Sherlock Holmes. You know, in the original novel, Sherlock Holmes is a very proficient hand-to-hand fighter.
And I guess
And
that's
very
the way to kind of differentiate your Sherlock Holmes inspired character from Sherlock Holmes, right?
It's strange how it's such a common trend. Like,
Yes.
for example, like we talked about the Mentalist, like Patrick Jane, he's scared of guns. Every time a gun pulls out, he runs out of the room. For example,
I mean,
like Monk, terrified of violence and guns, like he refused to use a gun. Like David Suchet is like Poirot, even though he was a fucking soldier in the war. Like every time there's like, oh my stomach, and he runs out of the room.
I mean, maybe that's like, is that like trauma related then? Like, or you know,
it just got a sensitive stomach. It don't like eating food.
Well, I more meant just like the nervousness and the dislike for combat and stuff. Maybe that's like, I don't know if that's meant to have been related to the fact that he's got trauma from being a soldier, but again,
it's
I've
more the
not read
fact
them.
he looks like an egg, and you know that egg's gonna get cracked in it. So Poirot's appearance, regarded as fastidious during his early career, later falls hopelessly out of fashion. That's the thing. The longer the show goes, not the show, the books, but when you watch the later episodes, because they're set, it's the period pieces, but they get closer and closer to like the present day and ending like the 1970s. Like he's still dressed exactly the same as he was like 30, 40, 50 years ago. To the point where he gets
like
a fake mustache.
Right? Is they figure it out in like the mid to late 20s and never change.
Yeah.
Carl's still wearing those skinny jeans.
Still wearing them skinny jeans, man. Still proud of that fact. Poirot is extremely punctual and carries a pocket watch almost to the end of his career and life. He is very particular about his personal finances, preferring to keep a bank balance of £444, 4 shillings and 4 pence.
That's a lot more back in the 30s.
It was
to
a lot
70s.
more. Back in the day, that was a lot of money, yes. Actor David Suchet, who portrayed Poirot on television, said, "There's no question he is obsessive compulsive." And that's something like, a lot of actors have brought to the role. It's another common trend that's portrayed by actors playing these characters, like Patrick Jane. He's obsessive about like drinking his tea. He can only sleep on a very specific couch, which he has like brought to and from the locations in which he's solving crimes. Monk is literally obsessive compulsive. Like it's the key thing in the show of like his break from the police force and turn to being a detective is because he's so obsessive compulsive he could no longer be a police officer.
I was going to say, is it like actually that they are obsessive compulsive, or is it portrayed in a way of like, oh, I'm a bit quirky?
Well, it depends. Like some actors will lean into it a bit more. I'm reminded of who's it who plays like Sheldon on Big Bang Theory?
Oh, I'll look up the actor's name while you make your point.
Jim Parsons.
Jim Parsons,
Okay,
yeah.
where Jim Parsons has said, like, in the script, they never said that Sheldon was obsessive compulsive or on the autistic spectrum, but they always wrote the character as if he was. So he says, well, rather than play a stereotype, I researched it, talked to people who are obsessive compulsive and are on the autistic spectrum, and then I based my performance on that, so I wouldn't be a walking stereotype.
It's
even
kind of, I believe anyway, that's how Dan Harmon figured out that he was autistic, is not that he wrote Abed in Community as an autistic character, it's that he wrote it as basically a self-insert, and then realized, like, people were like basically pointing out that Abed is autistic, and he's like, no, Abed's just me. That right, okay. He like put the 2 and 2 together.
It's that great moment with I don't know why it reminds me of it, but it's in Modern Family, another show that I would love to cover one day, because putting clips in is the character of Phil.
Yes.
It's like, I've always been attracted to, like, strong, powerful women. Michelle Obama, Oprah, Condoleezza Rice. Oh. For context, all those women are black.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Right, yeah. No, I wasn't familiar with some of those names, but like...
But it's just when he does it, he just goes,
To be
like,
fair, though, he has married a strong woman in Modern Family, like
arguably one of, like, the best TV couples. That show has 3 of the best TV couples on it, right? In Jay and Gloria, Phil and Claire, and then Cam and Mitch. Although I've got Mitch is great, but like Cam's a little bit out there.
I don't particularly like Cam and Mitch. They both grate on me in very different ways, and like it's one of those of they're well-written characters, but they're just like making me sound really fucking homophobic of me being like, I just wouldn't like them and get on with them in real life. It's like, no, they just seem like the kind of people that would grate on me a bit.
There's also as well because I like Mitch a lot because he reminds me of myself, just in the way that he's very fastidious. Yeah, he is obsessive compulsive, but there's some aspects of his personality where he's very particular and he likes things the way that he likes them. It's like, I like that. That's very me, and I like.
Yeah,
but
I think
the show.
I'd very much get on with like Phil Dunphy. I think that's my kind of guy.
But there's it's weird that the show, as progressive as it is, does fall into one of the weirdest and most specific tropes in regards to the portrayal of gay people, where the actual gay person portrays the straight man, for lack of a better term, and it's the straight person who plays like the flamboyant stereotype. Because Eric Stone Street, who plays Cam, is straight.
Or the person who plays Mitch is gay.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Jesse Tyler, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Like, there's a lot of shows where they have a gay couple, and it's the straight guy who plays the stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so weird. It's very prevalent across a lot of like media in which
I
gay
do think both of them all like into different types of gay stereotypes, right? Of like a lot
at the
of
same
like
time, they try and break those stereotypes. Like Cam is a former football player.
They do, yes. They kind of start there and then kind of throw in things to kind of change the stereotype up. But like they're both very like gossipy, kind of catty people, right?
But there's a lot of like some of the best episodes, and my favorite episodes, the ones concerning them as a couple. When they deal with this sort of thing, they encounter like they have a party where there's a friend of theirs like, I've not been single for a while, and like he's still being like, he's basically like a 2000s era sitcom gay character, and he's making all of like the jokes, and he's like, "Oh, I'll have some of that."
Like their wedding planner friend, right?
And it's like, no, it's another episode where there's a
different one, right?
Different friend, and he like, and when he makes the jokes, everyone's looking and goes, that's not okay anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's straight out of a sitcom from the 2000s. And it really highlights how well-rounded they are as characters.
Mm-hmm.
That when you bring in this like one-dimensional stereotype, it's like, oh, that's really bad.
Yeah, because I can't remember the name of the character, but like their wedding planner friend is like another very, very like over the top stereotypical character that you might see in a different kind of sitcom, right?
But I do like those as characters because again they get fleshed out. That's the thing about Modern Family; they all get fleshed out towards the end, and just like
that's the thing, right? Is like Jay basically like the template of Jay is essentially the same character that he plays in Married with Children, but then they change it up and make him an actual character and not just a one-dimensional person.
Again, the hottest wife in the world.
Yeah, true.
In like Sofia Vergara, and it's like the episode where they go to like the Vietnamese restaurant to have an adopted Vietnamese daughter, and just the awkwardness of them stumbling over, like it's like, oh, so these people, like, this is a Vietnamese restaurant. It's like, I hate being Vietnamese. I don't want to be Vietnamese. It's like, I think she says she wants to be gay because her dad's a gay, not Vietnamese. It's like, I want to be gay. It's like, you can't be gay. It's like, oh wait, no. It's like, no, I want to be gay. So don't worry, you'll grow out. It's just a phase. Like, oh my god,
what are we saying?
Like, we'll talk about that show, and I love that show so much. But we'll end on the methods employed by Mr. Hercule Poirot when he is solving the many crimes that he deals with. In the mysterious affair at Styles, Poirot operates as a fairly conventional, clue-based and logical detective, reflected in his vocabulary by two common phrases: his use of the grey little cells and order and method. Hastings is irritated by the fact that Poirot sometimes conceals important plans and details, as in the Big Four. In this novel, Hastings is kept in the dark throughout the climax. This aspect of Poirot, however, is less evident in later novels, partly because there is rarely a need for the narrator to mislead. So you don't need to mislead the audience because they should realistically know everything Poirot does, right?
A nice little got in my head. There is never a need
to mislead. In Murder in the Links, still largely dependent on clues himself, Poirot mocks a rival, bloodhound detective who focuses on the traditional trail of clues established in detective fiction, e.g. Sherlock Holmes, depending on footprints, fingerprints, and cigarage. From this point on, Poirot establishes a psychological bona fide. Rather than painstakingly examining crime scenes, he inquires into the nature of the victim or the psychology of the murderer. So he initially started as like very typical classic detective thing of like, oh, I'm going to study all the clues and solve the crime. But he came into his own as a character and a detective of like, the detective fiction genre by his focus is on discovering why people committed the crime, not the how. And that's like his expertise in like figuring out people.
I mean, and that's usually the kind of like way to figure out a lot of things, right? Is like a lot of crime is committed in a moment of passion and not necessarily premeditated.
Yes, and that's one of the things I like about Poirot, because it's very classic in your detective fiction, right? Where, like, it's the drawing room scene, where it's like everyone is gathered, and now I'm going to tell you who committed the crime. And he walks
I do love those kind of scenes where like they break down, like, well, it could be this person in the room. It could they go through like, every single person's like possible flaws and like motivations in the room, and then break it down as like, but actually it was you all along.
Yeah, which would never hold up in court, by the way. Like, fun fact, you just can't do that. It's my favorite is like in like crime shows where they get the person to confess on the stand, and it's like, you can't do that. Like, that's just not how like the law works. You like one episode, I think it's like Law and Order, where the lawyer dobs in his own client on the stand, like, yeah, he did it. And they send him to jail. It's like, if that ever happened in real life, that would be an immediate mistrial.
Yeah, and probably like that person like losing their bar license as well, right?
Instantly, right? If like, but in the show, it's portrayed as like, we got him. It's like, you can't. Your lawyer's not allowed to go like, he did it.
You can't just have your defense lawyer come in and just job you in on it.
He fucking did it. Defo did it. Poirot focused on getting people. He focused on getting people to talk. In early novels, he cast himself in the role of Papa Poirot, a benign confessor, especially to the young ladies. In later works, Christie made a point of having Poirot supply false or misleading information about himself or his background to assist in him obtaining information. This is something that is very common in another detective fiction show I'm very much a fan of, Columbo.
Which
the eponymous Columbo.
Is that allowed as like a police detective?
That's another thing.
But he's not. He's a private detective.
He's a private detective, but also as well, the police can lie to you as much as they fucking want. That's why they tell you never talk to the fucking cops. Cops can
Yeah.
lie to you as much as they goddamn want, and that's why it's
They're allowed to be undercover cops, right? Like, why?
yeah.
If they can lie to you, why can't anyone else?
But also as well, like one of the most infuriating things they normalize in police shows is like one, for example, I watch is SWAT. I watch a lot of these type of shows because they're fascinating. And in that, and the reason they do it is for the sake of like convenience of the plot. They don't want to hire another actor to play the lawyer, but they'll have like a guy in like under the hot lights interrogating him and go, okay, if I tell you like some details, you'll let me go, right? And they go, okay, sure. And then he tells them the details. Like that is not how it would go because the police are, at that point just go, okay, arrest him.
Yeah, because they can just say to you, yeah, sure, we'll let you off.
Get a deal, right? Of course you will.
But
It's
then
like,
I can't remember what the again. I don't watch much of this kind of. I can't remember what entrapment is.
That's if you trick someone into committing a crime. So if you're like
Right.
you're undercover and you go someone, do you know what we should do right now? Let's throw a brick through that window.
And then they
And
do
they throw
it, and
a
you're
brick
like,
through
aha, you're arrested. It's like, oh.
But at the same time, you can a very clever lawyer could argue someone out of that, right?
And
But
like, yeah, you can, because like you can't make them commit a crime, but you can like certainly lie to them and be there to watch them commit a crime.
yeah, you can supply false information. It's not a crime to lie. Like, unless you lie about something that is a crime, but that's a different conversation.
That must be like one of the most useful like urban myths out there for the police,
that,
right?
Like, undercover cops have to tell you when they're undercover.
Is that like any cop has to tell you if they're telling the truth or not? That must be such a fucking useful, pervasive myth.
Of like, yeah, you have, or the other one of like, they're not allowed to commit crimes. Like another one is like make an undercover. If you think someone's undercover, make them jaywalks. They're not allowed to commit any crime. It's like, of course they're allowed to commit minor
make
crimes.
Make them like smoke some weed or something, right? When it wasn't legal.
They're allowed to do that. They're not allowed to kill someone. That's the thing they're not allowed to do.
Mm-hmm. But like they're allowed to do a bit of drugs to keep their cover.
Yeah, I wrote an article on like what crimes can undercover cops commit, and it's like quite a lot. It's basically anything up to and including the crime they're trying to get the person for, because it's seen as a lesser evil sort of thing. Of well, if we try to catch a murderer, we can probably let the person take drugs to maintain their cover. But there's a problem with it because but the problem with this is that a lot of cops and undercover cops kind of took the piss.
And, of course, yeah.
So initially, a thing that a lot of undercover cops were allowed to do is start relationships, because hey, what's a good way to get ingratiated with a criminal like outfit? It's getting a relationship. But what a lot of undercover cops were doing is getting girlfriends, and in some cases wives, in some cases having kids, and then being pulled out of cover and then fucking off and not paying child support. And the police forces,
it's part of the job, sorry.
Yeah, there was a case in the UK where a bunch of police officers went undercover with an environmental group who was suspected of potentially trying to break into a nuclear power plant. And a bunch of the police officers just shacked up with some of the women, and then the just fucked off back to their houses with wives and kids.
Holy
and then
shit.
These women found out when it got like, because they never knew, they thought their husbands had died or disappeared or ran off.
Yeah.
When these things were like uncovered years later, journalists tracked them down. Like, oh, the government owes you like 20 fucking years of backdated child payments. And the government's like, okay, cops can't do this anymore. You're not allowed to do this.
Oh, that's so bad. I was thinking in my head like, oh yeah, they're just hooking up with them, right? But actually like having kids with these people.
Like there was like some police officers, they had families at home.
Yeah.
And they just left.
But it's part of the job, Cole. Part of the job. They can't do anything.
Well, that's what they said, yeah. And obviously, it's like you're not allowed to do that. But in regards to Poirot, he does tell several untruths to ingratiate himself to his those he's trying to interrogate or gain the trust of, similar to other fictional detectives like Columbo, where you would know almost nothing about Columbo's life, his backstory, to the point where people don't even know what his first name is. His first name is never revealed in any episode of the show. You don't even know what his fucking name is. Karl Columbo, look at that.
No, it's Cole. Last name's Umbo.
Oh, yeah, you don't even know the dude's name.
I reckon it's Colin. Colin Columbo.
Colin Columbo. We don't know. And it's to the point where in the show, like we did a fact feed episode on it, where it's not clear if Columbo has one eye because the actor who played him had one eye, but if he had one eye, he wouldn't be able to be a police officer because he'd be disabled and therefore would not be like fit to pass the checks required to carry a firearm. But in the show, they make numerous allusions to the fact the actor had one eye.
So
but because Columbo lies all the time, it's not clear if he's lying about having one eye.
Over maybe in Britain you'd be able to be a police officer with only one eye, but if you
could be a police officer, but you'd be riding a desk. You certainly wouldn't be out in the field because Lucas, here's the thing that police officers often have to do. They often have to give eyewitness testimony. And can you imagine?
He's got one eye. It's fine.
Yeah. Can you imagine how easy it'd be to discredit a witness on the stand as a defense lawyer if the arresting officer had one fucking eye?
It's not eyes, witness.
Well, if he only had one eye, it'd be very easy, and that's why if police officers or stuff have a disability that would impair their senses, not their judgment, because police have shit judgment as it is, but their senses.
That's bull. You'd get eyewitness testimony from someone
single, not definitely eyewitness to the singular, but yeah. And I thought that was really we don't even know if he's got one eye, and it's a really interesting video. Go watch it. And yeah, Poirot similarly just tells big lies all the time because he's a cop.
No, he's not, though.
We don't know. He might be lying about it.
Well,
he also, this is the thing that's really funny, though. One of the things he's willing to do, though, is appear more foreign or vain to get people to underestimate him. He admits in one story, "It is true that I can speak the idiomatic English, but my friend who speaks the broken English is an enormous accent. It leads people to despise you. They say a foreigner, he can't even speak English property. Also, I boast, an Englishman he says often, a fellow who can think as much of himself as that cannot be worth much. And so you see, I put people off their guard." And that's a thing he speaks perfect fluent English and he understands it flawlessly. But why would you tell people that?
Well, right? How often do people talk in a different language, assuming that the people near them can't understand what they're saying?
Yep. Or not paying attention. And what's a good way to make people think you're not paying attention? They don't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. The many a time I've noticed French people insulting me or people around me while in France, but they do it in French, thinking you can't understand what they're saying.
Yep.
It's I understand enough to study it for 5 years back in high school. I understand enough to know that they were trying to insult us, but they'll just do it straight to your face because they think English people can't speak French.
Yeah, there's I think it's I don't know who did it, but those videos where they ask 100 people or whatever, and they're talking head segment with people on the street where it's hey, what's a thing you've overheard in another language that the person speaking language didn't think you'd understand? And the story that I always make me giggle. This guy I was on a bus, just in Poland or something, and two Polish lasses were opposite me talking about, he's kind of good looking, but he should smile more. He looks like his mum's died, and just he sat there for a minute and just he looked after a while and went, "My mum's fine." And they just shut up and got off the bus, and I always thought that was quite funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we could go on more and more about Poirot and his career, but just I love it. This has been a very me-centric episode because we got to talk about two things I love: Poirot and.
That's the thing. I obviously I do my best to participate in the conversation, but the amount of times you talk about a police procedural, I'm another one I know nothing about.
The thing is that I mentioned 7 during this episode, and that's I've watched them all,
and I haven't watched any.
I watched so many, and then we'll make episodes about them all.
Mm-hmm. That's the lovely thing about Wiki Weekends is that every time I worry to myself, how far can we stretch the gimmick? We'll have an episode like this where we mention 10 other things where we can go make videos on them.
I want to do one about SWAT because that's the one where Shamar Moore bounces a bullet off the floor to shoot a guy in the penis.
I want to talk about One Piece, so fucking watch some Carl.
You watch Poirot, damn it!
We talked about it.
Watch Poirot.
Oh, that is something though that I would like to make as a Wiki Weekends kind of New Year's resolution.
That's a Patreon goal. Joe, we're going to do those weekly. We're going to plan the ultimate Patreon goal is to do a a book club type thing where it's like, go watch this piece of media.
One Piece.
No, season 1. Could I watch season 1 in a month?
Like watch until the end of
There we go.
X episode where Arlong Park.
In which case, yeah, we'll do that. We'll make it a Patreon goal, unless I happen to watch it beforehand. But yeah, if we get to our max Patreon to do the book club, I'll watch it then, and we'll have a discussion about it. You can hear me and Lucas talk about it ad infinitum, or ad nauseum, sorry.
And just it is one of those. I am obviously joking. It's just like a nice running bit to have. But one New Year's resolution I would like to have for the channel is to like every now and then, not necessarily for everything we talk about, because we talk about 4 subjects a week, but like make plans more often to like say we'll both watch something and then talk about it.
Usually it's movies and stuff, isn't it?
Like it's very easy for like movies or a like short TV show or something, right?
Yeah. For example, one that I want to talk about upcoming is Squid Game, but you've not watched season 2, right? Yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the Squidliest Game, but we can't do that. And obviously, there's some stuff I want to talk about that I know Lucas is a fan of, but he's not yet watched it, and vice versa with Lucas, right? There's presumably stuff where it's like, well, I'd like to talk about this game, but I'd like for Karl to play it first, or at the very least double check that it's a thing that he has in mind, so we can both have the discussion.
And also, you watch Squid Game really early compared to like when a lot of people might watch it, so it's probably good when it's something like that to like just give it a little bit of time so that more people have watched it and aren't afraid of spoilers, so don't click on it and stuff.
I watched it in one fucking day.
Yeah, I know.
Mate, it's so good. It's the best. Gi-hun, man, let's go.
It is so surprising because like the moment they announced a second season of that, my first and only thought was like, why? They can't follow that up.
They have.
Yeah, no, I've heard from quite a few sources that they've actually done it. They've done a good job.
Can I just talk about the detail though that I'd sort of figured it out, but it was expanded upon more, and I was like, "Holy shit, that is so good!" And it's something I didn't. I kind of picked up. Do you like the
If
the
you
pink
spoil
dudes?
anything, Carl, I'm going to punch through the internet.
It's a costume detail. Like, do you know the pink dudes, like the guards? Have you figured out why they have the markings they do yet, or do you know why that is?
No, I don't want to know.
No, it's not. It's shown in a show, right?
No, like I don't know, and I don't want to yet know because
you don't want to know. We never tell you. It's just the circle, the square, and the triangle, right?
Well, I gathered that part from like the Squid Game, but like that's all I really know. If it's anything other than that,
well, it's just a hint. It's how you tell who's in charge, because it's based on how many sides the thing has.
Yeah, I don't know about that kind of stuff. So,
well, it's in the first season, right? You see, like there's the guards. There's a hierarchy among the guards.
I've not noticed it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just a thing that I found fascinating because the circle guys have one side.
They just depend. They just ask them, "What's your favorite PlayStation button when you get in?" That's all it is.
It's not even that. It's like that's it's the circle dudes.
No, I'm taking my own thing, Carl.
Look at these.
This is what I've decided. They go in and it's like, "What's your name? What size of uniform do you want? What's your favorite PlayStation button?"
Triangle, 3 sides.
I understand what you're saying.
Well, then there's the one. What do the VIPs wear?
Masks.
But what are what kind of masks?
Yeah, spoilers for season 1 here, by the way. But animal mask.
But what polygonal masks? They have more sides than anything.
Yeah,
that's how they're so. Oh, it's like so good. The people right at the top, they wear the polygonal masks. They've got way more sides.
I can't find a mask.
You can't.
I can. I'll do it.
I was wondering that, like, there's a circle, a square, and the circles aren't talking because they're dudes in the bottom. They've only got one side.
I'm telling you, it's PlayStation buttons.
Do you see that someone asked the creator that? There was an interview with him, like, a joke theory for season 2 is that they're going to introduce guys with crosses on the face and it's Sony who sponsor the games. And the guy goes in and goes, I wish I thought of that. We could have got him as a sponsor. Someone presented it as an actual fan theory to him. He looks at it and goes, okay, that's not true, but that would have been good.
That would have been good, yeah. Like, I think it would be. But anyway,
yes,
round it off there, and I will just, remind everyone that, as I mentioned in the break, I will be playing Marvel Rivals to celebrate my birthday over on Monday on my Twitch.
Yes, you will.
Legend of Kanto, links below. And I will be playing with chat. Everyone is welcome, whether you're good or bad at the game. We're just going to be playing some quick play, playing with chat, and having a fun, casual time.
We will indeed.
No
yes.
sweats,
Also,
no toxic people will be banning you.
Yes. Do you think Poirot could solve Squid Game?
Probably right.
Yeah. You know what? If you want to discuss that, there's a link to our Discord found in the chat.
Thank you all.
Cheers, everybody.